My 27M, wife, 29F, has given up on our child, 10F, I'm not sure how to reconcile. How do I move past this? My 27M, family's broken, and I'm trying to reassemble the pieces. I need advice. For context, my wife, 29F, and I are childhood sweethearts married now for around 5 years. I know we became parents and got married pretty young, but we've made it work. My wife's a small business owner. She turned a passion into a career. I'm really happy for her. When she started, I promised her that since my work hours were flexible, I'd hold things down at home so she could focus on building her business. We were a team until we weren't. My wife's an extreme workaholic, and it's come between our family. We're not in a good place. Our daughters, 10F, caregiving is solely on me. The time my wife and daughter spend together is made up mostly of short replies or silence. Our daughter isn't disrespectful. She's a good kid. She's just not as comfortable with her mom. My wife and I have had a lot of talks about the state of our family. With the business well off the ground and her not needing to personally oversee everything as often, we're working on reconnecting. It's been an uphill battle. Recently, we had a bad fight. She told me she's given up on trying with our daughter. She said she's not good at it, and she's just going to stay in her lane. I told her she couldn't decide to clock out on our daughter during rocky stints. She said she's emotionally exhausted from repeatedly striking out. She feels she can't do anything right in our daughter's eyes. She said I have it easy, that our daughter prefers me, and even made sure her whole class knew it. The class jab was about a school assignment. Our daughter had to interview someone she admired, and she asked me. My wife was hurt. She still feels a way about it. She accused me of not understanding. She comes home to a child she carried not respecting her. That our daughter's an expert critic when it comes to her. She went into a huge rant. The way she talked about her rubbed me the wrong way. I told her most of her complaints weren't our daughter's creation. She asked me what that meant, and I laid it out that she hasn't gone out of her way to connect with our daughter. She shut me down. She went into how she busts her ass for our family, and the least I could do is show up for her. All I do is show up for her, including holding down responsibilities that we're supposed to share. We aren't childless. It's no longer those me and her against the world days. I need to show up for our daughter too. She just kept saying she has a lot on her plate and how I'm supposed to be her piece. I refuted the only piece that ever seemed to matter these days was hers. She said our daughter and I are two of a kind and began sarcastically apologizing for her sacrifices, and if the business is what's driving us apart, then she'll renounce it. She'd make do. I asked if we could skip her martyr routine and actually talk. The fight only escalated. I called the fight a complete waste of time, but she interpreted that as me calling her a waste of time. It was the worst fight we had in a while. Our daughter was at her grandparents', so she didn't hear anything. We're at an impasse. Things are still tense. How to clear the air or how to reach her about our daughter. She can't dismiss her like some disgruntled customer at work. In a lot of ways, I feel like a single parent. I don't believe she's being honest with herself about our issues. She's a distant figure who has a habit of talking at our daughter instead of to her. There are a lot of broken promises. Nothing ever mended. She doesn't try engaging. Our daughter loves anime, but my wife doesn't hold back on overly criticizing it in front of her. Our daughter got into K-pop, but to my wife it's just bothersome noise around the house or in the car. Our daughter has stage fright. Yet she joined a school play because she knows her mom loves theater. My wife promised her she'd come. She didn't. The worst part was seeing our daughter realize she wasn't. My wife never apologized. She gave her, work was busy. I promise next time, speech. She offered to bring our daughter with her on Take Your Child to Work Day. I thought it'd be good for them and a chance for our daughter to see more of what her mom does. But our daughter called me upset and wanted me to pick her up. She said her mom had immediately left her with a subordinate and went AWOL. When my wife checked in on her, they fought. She told our daughter that a bratty attitude won't be tolerated in her workplace. She and I had it out later. She apologized to our daughter and blamed blowing up on work frustration. She offered to bring her back another day, but our daughter refused. My wife always felt she was bad at articulating her feelings. She feels she comes off aggressive. That's partly why she leaves our daughter's caretaking to me. But this fight has me questioning the nature of our relationship. I don't doubt she loves our daughter. I saw it firsthand during the pregnancy, and in our private conversations, she couldn't stop gushing about her. I felt her love in the little things. Something changed over time. My wife isn't close with her parents. She usually has me talk with them on her behalf. She has a mindset that parents' kids don't have to be close. She believes since she turned out fine, so will our daughter. I'm failing to help their relationship and our own. We barely have quality time. Intimacy is shot. When we're out together, we aren't really together because in public, she's hyper-aware and has her business persona on. What else to do? I'm at a loss. I'm not trying to bash my wife. I just want everyone to be okay. I'm in a fight for my family right now. How do I mend my wife's and daughter's relationship while also repairing my marriage? Comments. Commenter 1. Kids can tell when their parents don't like them. This is on your wife. She can step up and get help or not, but either way, you might want to find someone to talk to your kid about how she feels about her mom. Commenter 2. One of my very first memories was coming down the stairs and hearing my parents arguing. My mother was screaming and I opened the door worried just as she shouted, "I never wanted her, I never loved her." They both looked at me and my mother said real quickly, "Oh, but I love you now, don't worry." I was OP's daughter's age when my mother came to me and said, "I'm going to leave your father. I need to be selfish and think about me for a change." So she took my brother and left us. She was going to tell me they were both off on holiday and dad would have to have told me when they were gone what was really happening, but he made her tell me. And we haven't had a relationship since. Dad died in 2015 and she tried, but I don't know you lady, my parent is dead. OP, this is your daughter's future if you don't get everyone therapy stat. Commenter 3. First comment, your wife did not turn out okay. She is so far from okay, it isn't funny. Second, you cannot fix the relationship between your wife and child. Your wife has chosen to disengage from parent and I am sure your daughter feels like her mother doesn't care or even like her. It may take years to repair that relationship, but it will have to be your wife that puts in the hard work and makes the family a priority. I agree with the other comments that you all need family and couples counseling. This is a very fractured, dysfunctional family. You cannot fix this alone. Commenter 4. Your first point is what immediately stuck out to me, too. The wife claims that she and her parents aren't close, yet she's fine, so therefore the daughter will be too. However, her main complaint is that she's not close with her daughter, how she has a problem with that. So she's either being dense, or just isn't being honest with herself when she claims that she genuinely sees no issue with her parents' relationship, but has issues with the same dynamic with her daughter. Update. Thank you to everyone who reached out. It helped a great deal. My 27M original post was pretty much the first time I talked about any of this. I wanted to give an update. My wife, 29F, and I had a serious discussion about everything. It took us a while to get there because things were still tense after our last fight and our mini spats in between. Our daughter noticed the rift between her mom and me. She asked me about it. I'm not proud of that. I never wanted her involved in our fights. It was a larger wake-up call. I shouldn't have let it drag out. My wife asked if we could talk, and we both apologized for the fight. She was worried that I was calling it quits after how bad our last fight was. She took us not recovering as quickly as usual and my distance as me being done. She wanted to make a gesture for our marriage. I told her that her harsh action towards our daughter had made me question our relationship. She said she felt bad for intensely ranting about our daughter. She was overwhelmed and used the situation as a punching bag. She loves our daughter but is at a loss as a parent. I told her we'd all keep being at a loss in our current state. We're disconnected as a couple and a family. I feel like a single parent and alone in our marriage. Our current way isn't working. Her lack of presence is the common root cause. I didn't feel like our daughter or I actually mattered and were more put up with by her. That statement really bothered her. She denied it and promised our family does matter to her. She said she knows things aren't good right now, but she wants our family. That she gets frustrated and says stuff she doesn't mean, but it doesn't equate to how she actually feels. I told her it's not just her words. It's her actions. Her harshness and how she chooses everything over our family every single time while expecting us to just have smiles on our faces. We're not props, and I can't enforce a relationship between her and our daughter. She said she has trouble with contentment, and it's an endless chase. She has this need to keep chasing after an inner feeling she's always felt she missed. We talked about the feeling before. It's a high and feeling whole. She said she thought our relationship was the answer, she thought our daughter was the answer, and then she thought her business would completely fill that void. She said she doesn't know how to be with our daughter. When our daughter was a baby, everything was easier, that our daughter would get excited when she came home from work, that no matter what she did or didn't do, she had our daughter's love. But she's older now and barely seems to like being in the same room as her and clings to me. I asked if she's considered that maybe our daughter's hurting from her criticism and broken promises. My wife feels she's doing better than her parents. She said all our daughter knows is the grandpa and grandma who adore her over FaceTime. She doesn't know what they were like. Her childhood was staying in a child's place, doing what was expected of you, representing the family, and attitudes weren't tolerated. There wasn't a problem they couldn't solve with a belt. My wife said she doesn't believe in a belt as discipline, but she doesn't know how to be with our daughter and fears she's aggressive when communicating, so she leaves our daughter to me. She doesn't feel she's good as a mother to an older child or with expressing personal feelings. She said I knew what her parents were like. She's right. My in-laws ran an unforgiving household. My wife was pretty much a latchkey kid. My FIL was always working, and my MIL was busy with her community engagements. Feelings were compared to complaining, and there were certain expectations of my wife. I was 17 and my wife was 19 when we had our daughter. Of course the circumstances weren't ideal, but my in-laws made you feel their disapproval. There wasn't support to be found from them. They told my wife that if she was grown enough to make a baby, then she was grown enough to take on the responsibilities on her own. My in-laws have mellowed out a lot now, but my wife is no contact with them. She used her business to pay off their house, and that was that. I'm the buffer between them. I'm accustomed to being my wife's protector. That was always our dynamic. Especially during the pregnancy, when everyone had commentary, were comedians, or when guys would talk about her. Looking back, I think that's part of why I made excuses for her actions with our daughter. I told my wife that I'm in love with her, but our daughter can't be at the expense of our relationship. We're at a crossroads. Something needed to change. Counseling isn't an option anymore. It's happening for our daughter and me. I want for us to come through this as a family. If she refuses counseling, I'd respect her decision, but her answer would give me my answer on what I needed to do for the best of our daughter. We'd have to separate for the time being. My wife said if it's between counseling or losing our family, then she chooses counseling. She wants to keep working on our marriage and reconnecting as a family. We're not props. I asked if this was what she really wanted. If we do this, it can't be her showing up in word only but looking for any reason to skip out. She said what we built means something to her, and losing that has become more real to her now. I talked with our daughter about her feelings on counseling too. I didn't just want to randomly throw an appointment on her. She was pretty open to the idea. I think it's because she's close with my parents and she knows they do counseling. My wife and I are officially in counseling. We're trying a conjoint therapy approach for right now. It's a new experience for us. Prior to this, my wife was never big on counseling, but she has been showing up. She hasn't flaked. There has been some improvement with my wife and daughter. My wife has pulled back on criticism and asking our daughter questions. Recently, we went to an amusement park as a family, and they had a good time together on some rides. My wife asked to pair with our daughter on a few games too. It was the first time in a long time I saw them share a laugh. Nothing's perfect. We're in the early stages. I know my wife and daughter's relationship will be a long road. I know how it pans out isn't up to me, but I'm here to support our daughter in whatever she needs. It's what the future holds, but I want to be hopeful for my family. Maybe it's not too late. I want the best for everyone involved. Our daughter will be starting middle school soon, and I told my wife that she'll need both of us. I'm hoping this road isn't the end of my family. I want us to have to come through this together. When I chose a life with her, it wasn't because we were having a baby, so let's stick together. It was because I love her and want to be with her. I want to make this work. Thank you to everyone again. I appreciate the support. It's much appreciated. TLDR Update 4, my family's broken, and I'm trying to reassemble the pieces. My wife's an extreme workaholic, and it's come between our family. We're not in a good place. Our daughter's caregiving is solely on me. My wife and daughter's time together is mostly short replies/silence. We're working on reconnecting, but we had a bad fight. She's given up on trying to connect with our daughter. She said she's not good at it, and she's just going to stay in her lane. She feels she can't do anything right in our daughter's eyes. It was our worst fight in a while. Now we're at an impasse. In a lot of ways, I feel like a single parent. I'm failing to help their relationship. I just want everyone to be okay. How do I mend my wife's and daughter's relationship while also repairing my marriage? Comments. Commenter 1. This is a good start. I will add that your wife needs individual counseling. She will never be able to fill that void in her with other things or people. She has to fill it within herself. Good luck to you and keep looking out for your daughter. Commenter 2. I really hope everything works out for this family. It seems everyone is trying and I'm hoping the initial progress OP has reported will make it easier for all of them to keep going and making more progress. I think the wife got a wake-up call and realizes how close they came to not making it as a couple. Commenter 3. I appreciate the additional context about your wife, how she grew up, and importantly, the age you became parents. I admit, I was ready to throw her in the rubbish before that point, but your wife has never been shown what to do, how to parent, how to properly trust someone else is going to be there, so she relies solely on herself. I really hope you all can find your way through this, OP. You're a great dad for protecting and defending your daughter. Commenter 4. This all seems really good first steps. I hope they continue to be good steps. Your wife desperately needs indivisible counseling though. That void feeling and the other trauma her parents inflicted on her won't be able to be addressed in marital counseling. And not getting that addressed will very likely just be a shadow waiting to take back over either with a new, this will fill it, or go back to an old one. Not saying you have to push it immediately, and maybe the counselor you're seeing now will bring it up, but it needs to be one of the steps along the way. Stories number 2. Aita for calling off my wedding because my fiancé wanted his ex to cater the event. I 27F recently called off my wedding to my fiancé 30M and now everyone is acting like I'm the villain. We have been together for 2 years and got engaged 3 months ago. Wedding planning has been stressful but mostly smooth until it came time to finalize the catering. My fiancé insisted on hiring a specific caterer he has worked with in the past. He's in event planning, and I was fine with that until I found out who she was. Turns out that the caterer is his ex-girlfriend of 4 years. They dated seriously, lived together, and only broke up before he met me. He didn't tell me about that. I found out from his cousin Barkley. I brought it up calmly, and he admitted it was her, but said they are on good terms and that she is the best in the business. He genuinely didn't see a problem. I told him I wasn't comfortable with his ex being such a central part of our wedding. He said I was being insecure and immature, and that it's just business. I suggested that there are many good caterers, we should find another highly rated caterer. He refused and said I was making drama out of nothing. That was a huge red flag to me. Long story short, we argued about it for days. His refusal to even consider my feelings over this made me question everything. I couldn't see myself marrying someone who dismissed my boundaries like that, so I called it off. Now, his family and even my own siblings are calling me petty and saying I threw away a great relationship over something small. I feel heartbroken and confused. Stories number 3. Aita for not telling my roommates and sisters I am the owner. I, 33F, bought my home right before the pandemic. The world shut down and I shut into my remote work with the solitude and comfort of a natural introvert. The house was extra large and I only really could afford it because the family selling was in need of a quick sell. The house has a finished attic and basement, which were easily converted into not so many apartments. The basement has its own entry point and also connects into the main house. There are 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, and the master room has a walk-in closet. During the pandemic, my sister both were hit hard and quickly needed to downsize as their own roommates moved back home. My sisters, 25F and 27F, and I do not have such a luxury, so I offered them rooms at below market rate and told them they needed to supply their own food. The rent was really to help with increase in bills. They were both still in school at the time but also working. This arrangement gave them more breathing room financially. Then, a girl they both knew was evicted from her home with her BF because the family they rented from needed the home back. I offered the basement at near market rate, though still a little under as I felt bad and it is a basement apartment. After that, a friend of a friend heard about my arrangement and asked if there was any room left. I gave him the attic apartment for another near market rent. Rental agreements were drafted up for each person. I explained the basic rules, the rent, and how long they would have if rent was not received. I told them to read it and return it to me when signed. I left them each with their own copy. I collect the rent the first Saturday of the month. They leave the name blank on the checks for me to fill out, and I always thought it was because they were afraid of misspelling my stupidly unique name and having the check bounce as a result. Apparently not. The issue: I still have one free room in the main part of the house, but I use it as my office and it locks up. My friend knows my sisters and they got to chatting up while out together. They bumped into each other during a day out. My sisters mentioned that extra room, and my friend has a cousin, 18F, who will be starting college in our city and asked if my landlord would rent it out to her. I brushed over the comment because I thought there was miscommunication and told her the room wasn't for rent as I use it for my at-home office. She asked if I was paying for the room and I told her, why would I pay for a room in a house I own? She got a little quiet, apologized for pushing and told me the struggle it's been to find a spot for her cousin. I told her all of my tenants are solid until December when renewals go out. I can offer her a spot if someone moves, but I stressed it was unlikely as everyone gets along, stays out of each other's business, and it works well for them. We dropped the topic. A few days ago my sisters asked me how the talk went and I said it was okay, but her cousin won't be moving in. They asked why and I explained to them the situation above. They suggested I move my office to my bedroom or the main room and stop paying rent for an extra room to save costs. When I asked what they meant, they said, well, you do pay rent for the extra space, right? No. I then asked if they knew I was the landlord and they were floored. They never actually read the agreements they have been signing. They went off on me about how I should have told them and that they shouldn't have to be paying rent to family. I told them the rent was to cover their increase in bills. I wasn't going to house them for free when they made enough to cover a fair share on a shared expense. If they would rather full market rent on the rooms they were currently in, I could arrange that come renewal. By now they could afford it with their jobs and having saved money on rent for 5 years. They called me an asshole for holding rent above their heads. This then leaked to the tenants as they talked about the issue to their friends in the basement. While their rent is more than just for bills, it is not the market rent value I could get out of the space despite them each having income and no family to support. They came to me to ask that I lower the rent, as if being friends with my sisters was reason enough as I was the landlord and not somebody they didn't actually know. The deal they had no longer seems in their favor, apparently. I told them they had until December to decide if they wanted a renewal because it was not going to be lowered. They are now acting like I am kicking them out, when all I said was now that they fully understand their position they needed to make a choice to stay as with current costs and annual adjustments as needed as was our agreement or begin the process of looking as rent prices have skyrocketed and it's much harder to find a place. The adjustments do not include knowing I am the landlord. My attic tenant asked if I was cleaning house and basically begged I don't kick him out. His family turned their back on him because of conflicting views. Personally, his views don't bother me. His family's though. I explained it all in detail and he was like, wait, I always knew you were my landlord because it's in the rental agreement. But he also never put my name down because it's hard to spell. Now everyone is upset with me and I feel unwelcomed in my own home. Aita Reddit if I didn't renew one or all of their leases because of this hostility I feel. Edit. Word. Quick edit since I keep seeing a similar question. Our lives have been a mess of social services and foster care as children, all aging out at 18. I didn't go out of my way to tell them about my buying a house, partly out of guilt, and they came to me for leads on places to live in a time of need. The guilt comes from not taking them in when I had the opportunity at 18. I would have had to jump through massive loops and I did not feel prepared to care for myself, let alone a couple of kids I hardly knew since we had been separated often. We reconnected when they aged out and built from there. We also do not share the same last names as we each have different fathers. Update. Aita for not telling my roommates and sisters I am the owner. Hello everyone, I wanted to thank everybody for taking the time to read my last post and offer up their advice, comments, thoughts, and judgment. I took some of the advice given and have taken that don't rent to family or friends again to heart. So I'm going to jump into the update. I'm going to try to break it down bit by bit before going into it all. Mr. Attic, I'm keeping him. I pulled him aside first and separately. I told him I would not be renewing the others' leases in December and asked if he would want to rent the basement for at market value. He turned it down, asking to keep the attic as he is comfortable there. I told him it would probably be in his best interest to let the others believe this is a whole house clean out so he doesn't get caught in the crossfire. He agreed and went out of his way to turn his social media to private. He also sent me screenshots of a group chat he had been added to. The group chat, my sisters and other pair of tenants started up a group chat to bitch about me being so uncompromising and greedy. They were coming up with ideas to not pay rent or to only pay in part. The basement tenants joked about one of them losing their job so they could ask for leniency since I was too stuck up to be kind to them about the rent. The harassment, my sisters and Mr. Basement had told their friends, and the families of Mr./S Basement, about the rent, the lies, and my inability to consider outside perspective and need. I've had a steady stream of calls, DMs, texts, and posts directed at me since before I made my last post, which is what prompted me to post. I made my accounts private, disabled some of the messaging functions, and told the 4 of them to get this to stop before I got my lawyer involved. Spoiler, they didn't. So after taking a night to think about it, I brought the group together to have a discussion about the rent and situation. My sisters looked smug and Mr. Basement kept sharing knowing looks. I told them bluntly I was not going to renew leases in December because their actions, attitudes, and lack of consideration has made me feel unvalued, humiliated by their family, and unwelcome in my own home. I told them if they found an apartment or place to go before December, I wouldn't charge them for breaking the lease, but if there was any damage anywhere, they would not get their security deposits back until the pricing out was settled. If there was more damage than their security deposit, they would be taken to court. I told them I was done being kind and understanding to people who thought so lowly of me. I also warned them I could and would break the leases myself if I felt the need, in which case they would have 30 days. It was immediate chaos. A lot of yelling, insults, and cursing. Even Mr. Attic, but he was yelling at the others for getting him kicked out when he didn't do anything. He made an epic show of storming up to the attic and slamming the door. He sent me laughing emojis and texted that he wasn't going to be able to keep a straight face a little later. I waited for them to stop yelling, and when they demanded what they would do, I set a stack of ads for apartments and houses for rent in the nearby area and said they would have to start looking now. I told my sisters I would help pay for their moving truck, but told the basement tenants they would have to ask their families for help moving out. Mr. Basement picked up the stack of papers and his eyes went wide. He stared at me and asked if I was fucking serious. I told him the prices listed were not mine to judge, change, or deal with. I reminded him his current place was below market because I had a say in it. Market prices for one-bedrooms in the area are well over $1,500 a month, if he wants near his work and close enough to walk to stores and things. He currently has a 2-bedroom for less than that. My sisters grabbed some of the papers and the 27-year-old started crying because she couldn't afford an apartment on her own. She told me about her student loans and credit card debt. I told her, too bad. I gave you a good deal out of kindness and you sent an army after me. I would have considered letting you stay if you hadn't been so nasty. I told all of them they could probably swing a 2-bedroom between the 4 of them and got up and left. They refused to talk to me now. My sisters spent the night in the basement apartment and I could hear shrieks and crying if I walked by the door that leads down there. I feel a little bad, but I reread your comments to keep my sanity. As for if I want them out, I can give them 30 days notice since they are inside my own home. I checked and double-checked with the lawyer and this information had been in their rental contracts. If I do have to kick them, and they try to refuse to leave and drag it out in court, which they don't have the money for, I've been given some handy advice by a fellow landlord who had to remove his own brother. I can't remove them by force, but I can make living there entirely uncomfortable. Nothing stops me from taking doors off hinges or starting remodeling while their stuff is in the way. Nothing stops me from turning off the water or electric for their sections of the house during remodeling. Quick edit, just for remodeling purposes. It wouldn't be done to make them leave. But they can't stop my remodeling as squatters. It might seem like an asshole thing to do, but they would be the ones to start it, and I actually do want to repaint and do some adjustments. The reason I am leaning on evicting them by August is because the harassment has gotten so much worse now that there is an actual non-renewal happening. I'm leaving my phone on silent and collecting messages, voicemails, emails, and other things to hand off to my lawyer next week. I told them to call off their dogs and they haven't. I asked Mr. Attic if he knew anyone who would need a place and to let me know. He has a few friends from his community who seem interested, as they both live with roommates or family and want out. If anyone has any questions this quiet morning, I will try to answer them. Quick edit. I have cameras outside and in common rooms, facing the front and back doors, the hallways upstairs and the door leading to the basement. The tenants have access to the entry point ones like Mr. Attic has the hallway to his area, Mr.'s basement have the feed that leads to their door inside the main house, and they all have outside camera access. I'm thinking of cutting access to the outside cameras for them. They can't do anything to the feeds as they are guests in the system, so they can't delete anything, and my access automatically saves on extra external systems. I might just cut them all out of the system except Mr. Attic for peace of mind. Also, I keep seeing people ask about our family. There are no parents and no family from our side. My sisters have no relationships with their fathers or their families, mine have been killed due to his own actions, there is no sympathy for the likes of him, and his family shunned him so they shunned me as well, and our mother is a cup of ash left at the funeral home. Aita for not telling my roommates and sisters I am the owner. Update 2. Hey everyone. I'm very tired. Thank you all for your kind words and wonderful advice. On to the update. Mr. Attic's friends, 2 have agreed to take the bedrooms my sisters are currently occupying when they move out. I've met them, we talked at length, and they are wonderful people. One helped me change the tire on my car because I ended up with a flat just after our meeting, and she was incredibly kind and showed me how to change it. Like she walked me through it step by step, letting me do it but just explaining how. I can't believe I've never changed a tire before. Weirdly embarrassing. The harassment and the lawyer sent a cease and desist to everyone that had contacted me. Then, he went on and filed for restraining orders/orders of protection and a claim for slander/defamations. There were many posts with me tagged or with my name claiming I was an unfit landlord, a slum lord, a greedy bitch, a home wrecker, because I apparently came onto him at the basement, so funny because he is fugly and you couldn't pay me to touch that, and more. These things take time, but there was an almost immediate drop-off of calls, messages, etc. Mr. Basement, have been served their notice. They helped spread lies and deception. They have ceased all communication with me, but they only have 30 days and I have posted notes on their porch reminding them every day how long they have. I've seen them starting to take smaller things out today, which is what prompted this update. Mrs. Basement can be heard crying a lot if I stand by the top of the stairs. I think they might be moving back in with family, which is what they had been avoiding by moving into my basement. Her mother is toxic, her father has a new wife who hates her, and Mr. Basement's family dislikes her enough to outright ignore her or tell it to her face that she isn't family, especially because she won't give her BF a family. Spoiler, she can't have kids due to medical stuff. And they aren't even married. Group chat, I have screenshots of their group chat, courtesy of Mr. Attic, and there is a lot of evidence of them feeding lies to others, talking all about how they told this person this, or that person that. Mr. Basement made the claim I came onto him, and his girlfriend went nuts. I think she doesn't know he lied about it, just to make it more believable to others. When he first made the claim, she blew up my phone and social media before dragging it to others. My sisters weren't surprised by my behavior. That stung. I have never done anything like that in the past. My sisters, they also have their notices. The 25-year-old is already moving in with a couple of friends who think I am horse shit. They come every so often to help her move things and they send me nasty looks or make loud, intentional comments for me to hear. She has been dumping my food into the trash and dumping it down the sink. I just got a mini fridge for my room and she spends nights screaming at my locked door. I take my work to a local cafe, rather, multiple ones, or library now because she will just shriek any time she thinks I'm working. I make it vary and don't go to the same place twice in a row. The 27-year-old has turned to begging for me to let her stay as she can't afford to live on her own and she has no one willing to take her. Her boy toy, didn't even know she had one, broke up with her when he got the cease and desist from the lawyer. He was one of the ones causing problems, but once the lawyer stepped in to bat, he bounced. According to Mr. Attic, he heard her telling someone something along the lines of he could move in if he helped her get me to leave or back down because it's family property. She had been taking a call outside and I caught the proof on camera because he told when and where to look for it. Quick edit, my sisters are not moving in together because they each blame each other. They also blame the basement tenants while they blame my sisters. They all collectively blame me as well since I'm just pure evil, but they think each of them pushed me to do it. Cameras, only Mr. Attic still has access. The cameras were not part of the rental agreement and everyone lost their damn minds when I took away the access. They tried covering them or adjusting them, but I warned them they would be held liable for damage and anything else I could get if they did that again. Now, I get middle fingers and aggressive stances and stares into the cameras. I'm sure I'm missing things. I just can't sleep and I'm swamped with getting them out, with work, and with trying to fill their places, and getting the basement redone before going back on the market. Aita for not telling my roommates and sisters I am the owner. Update 3. I really wasn't going to update again so soon. I was planning to wait till move-out date or the few days following depending on how it all went, but days ago a big thing happened and I just don't know how to feel about it. Also, I wanted to address a few common questions and concerns I got in comments and DMs. If I haven't answered a DM, I am sorry. I wasn't expecting so many. Sorry if this is long. Questions first. Is Mr. Attic still putting on his dramatic performance? Absolutely. He has been bringing in boxes and leaving with boxes. The boxes are full of things he is donating or selling, or just empty. He is using this time as an excuse to declutter and redesign his space. I told him if he wanted to pick out new colors while I am redoing the basement to do it. He complains at my sisters in the kitchen or shared spaces when they try to talk to him about his plans, telling them he wouldn't have to make plans if it wasn't for them. Why not move into the basement and rent the house as a whole, possibly to a family? Children freak me out. Kidding. I have a pool and them being left unattended to drown is a big worry for me. I let the pool be communal. Children are naturally loud, stomping, slamming things, shrieking or laughing, and don't fully understand the concept of others and how they act infringing on their peace or the quiet. I work from home so I can't have that kind of noise above my head during meetings, or keeping me from sleeping. I also know from past experience that children are more destructive than pets, most times. I don't want crayon or marker on the walls, holes made from throwing toys, broken doors, or other things I've seen kids do during my time in the system. You leave a kid alone for a minute and they find all sorts of trouble. Did I get my restraining orders? Not yet. I'm still collecting evidence for them. I've been collecting videos of the 25-year-old screaming and the layers of harassment they caused. I also am elbows deep in an emergency one now. Call the police on the screaming. I've been advised by my lawyer to collect as many videos as I feel safe enough to do so first. Show a history, show a cause for concern. I will probably call sometime this week if she keeps it up, but she has had a reason to stay very quiet. Change the locks when they leave, every door is getting new locks, even Mr. Attic's. Charge the sisters for coffee and things, they supply their own food. They supply their own needs. My food has been moved into my room, thanks to the mini fridge. Be careful they don't run up the bills, my sisters each pay equal parts of each bill in the main house. The tenants are responsible for their water and electric. If they run the bills up, they are responsible for them. The rent covers trash, Wi-Fi, no cable, heat. On to the update. A comment mentioned that the flat tire I had might have been intentional. This left me very uneasy and I went to a friend to have it checked. He confirmed it has been slashed. I let him do a full body look over the car and he found an air tag in the bumper. We haven't figured out where it came from yet, or rather, who. He said that was outside his wheelhouse and I didn't want to keep it with me, so I took it to my lawyer, who took it to the cops. I'm waiting to hear back. My 27-year-old sister has been incredibly wired since it was taken to the cops, in my opinion. She has been constantly asking where I am going, what I am doing, who I am seeing. She didn't do that before. She has been trying to stalk my social media, but I blocked her and a bunch of others. I know this because she keeps asking why I blocked her. She is demanding I unblock her because we are family and there shouldn't be any secrets. She also keeps pestering to know if I found their replacements yet, begging to stay, and demanding I apologize to her ex because I terrified him with the lawyer. I am looking through my footage but I can't find anyone tampering with my car, so I think the air tag was put on while the car was away from the house because whoever did it knew there were cameras facing the cars. The 25-year-old started leaving big messes in the kitchen/common rooms. She would leave dishes out overnight and a few days instead of cleaning up after herself and using the dishwasher. She left clothes on the furniture and her muddy shoes in the hallway to trip people at the bottom of the stairs. I took pictures of the messes and reminded her that if I had to clean up her mess when she was gone, it would come out of her security deposit. When she cleaned the dishes, I took them all to my room. I did not supply dishes in the rental contract. Both of them are upset with me because they are back to living on paper plates. On to the incident. Mr. Basement do not have keys to the main house. He also didn't have cameras access to the main house except the door that connects the basement and hallway. I came home from my working day, spent at the library, to find Mr. Basement inside the main house. Alone. My sisters were still at work, I worked a half day, and Mr. Attic had left earlier that morning for a weekend getaway, but he had told the others he was traveling to see a new apartment the next city over. Immediately on the edge, I called my friend and she stayed on the line while rushing over. I demanded to know what he was doing in the main house and how he got in. I had left after my sisters, so I know the house was locked up. He wanted to talk. He refused to answer how he got in. I figured it was a key from my sisters. He kept trying to get me to step away from the door. Eventually, he started telling me what I already knew about them moving in with family. How her family was terrible, how his family hated her, and he wanted to do anything he could to get an extension so they could focus on getting an actual apartment. When he said anything, he meant anything, and as he said that, he stepped closer. He started to ramble about how he knew about the way I looked at him, and he could give me a good time. He talked about how she didn't need to know of our time together, and he knew I was lonely. While it's true I have been single longer than I've known him, the single lifestyle has been entirely my own choice. Simply put, childhood trauma. I'm content with how I handle my life. I told him in no uncertain terms that what he was suggesting was exploitative, manipulative, and downright disgusting. If he ever caught me staring, it was because of the weird 8 tattoo on his shoulder that I could never figure out the meaning behind. I like tattoos, I have a few myself, and I like figuring out the meanings. In no way do I find him attractive or appealing. In fact, he has the kind of red flags I would avoid in a man. I told him besides his looks, there are reasons I would never date him, but I refuse to list them for him. List, you can skip. He smokes, he vapes, he lights up Mary Jane. He hates animals. He wants a brood of children. He gets loud when he is mad, and will curse a person out over little things. He is jealous of others, men specifically. An example, he failed at being a gym bro, so now men who work out are compensating for something. He knows everything. He got angry and told me I wasn't pretty enough to play hard to get, and that I was lucky he was willing to help me out and maybe even give me a real reason to have such a big house. I think he was implying children. But as he was getting really nasty about it, my friend pulled up and honked loudly and for a long time. I took that distraction to get out and he followed, yelling about how it was a good deal and how I would regret being old and alone. Minutes later, the cops rolled up. I hadn't called them, hadn't even thought to. My friend told her boss to as she left to come get me. I explained my side to the police, showed them the inside footage, and told them about his unauthorized access. They took back the key he had and trespassed him from the main part of the house. I forwarded everything to the lawyer and we should have an emergency protection order by tomorrow. I told Mr. Attic everything and he sent a small army from his community to his apartment and let me and them stay up in the apartment the last few days. I think I've been adopted. I had nowhere else to go. I have nowhere else to go. I am my only support. Or, I was. I now have these wonderful people as friends and they are willing to stay as long as Mr. Basement has access to the basement. Even after, if need be. But also, by not leaving I give the appearance I do not have the means to live in a hotel for the remainder of the month. Who would? I did the petty thing. I sent the video footage to Mrs. Basement. It's been radio silence from her, but she left me on read. I am shaken deeply from this. I am waiting anxiously to be told I have the emergency protection. But I have lovely people ready to toss him out if he manages to get back inside. I can't change the locks yet and even if I do, I can't guarantee my so-called sisters won't give him another copy. I changed the locks to my rooms and added extra. To be clear, because of the small army, my 25-year-old sister hasn't been able to scream at odd hours. Any advice would be so appreciated. Stories number 4. Aita for refusing to share my birthday with my stepmother. My stepmother's birthday is the day after mine. Since my father started dating her, about 10 years ago, I've been expected to share almost every celebration we make for my birthday with her. I was fine with it because I was in my early 20s and had other people to celebrate with, namely, my mom and my friends, but it still bothered me that my dad and I couldn't have our own thing. I'm married with 2 kids, 8M and 3F, and we have a little tradition. Because I was born in the second half of June, there is usually a Pixar movie playing in theaters. Every year on my birthday, we go to the movies to watch it and then have dinner together. We've been doing this since my son was 3, though we watched the movies at home in 2020 and 2021. This year, we're watching Inside Out 2. It will be my daughter's first time joining us, she just started sitting through movies, so we're all very excited. I'd never told my father or stepmother about this tradition. Last week, while we were visiting them, my kids told them we'd be going to the movies for my birthday, and I ended up explaining everything. The next day, my father and stepmother called me to tell me they were paying for the whole family, me, kids, husband and both of them, to go to the movies and have dinner, just like I'd planned. It was obvious they intended to celebrate my stepmother's birthday at the same time. They referred to it as our birthdays and suggested her favorite place for dinner. I told them that while I understood it was close to her birthday as well, this is a tradition intended to only celebrate mine, and I prefer to enjoy it with my children and husband as such. I prefer to pay for myself and would appreciate it if they didn't join us. They're both very upset. My father called me entitled for refusing to celebrate my stepmother's birthday as well as mine, and said I'm sending a terrible message to my kids by refusing to share. I feel like I'm too old to be acting like this over my birthday, but I don't want to share this tradition with her. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, NTA, I love how you have chosen to celebrate your birthday with a tradition that includes your children. It's very sweet and I know they will each remember this tradition when they are grown. Your father and stepmom are way out of line for trying to barge in on your birthday plans. I would normally suggest explaining to your father that you want to keep your birthday celebration as it is, just you, hubby and the children. However, this would probably be a waste of time, so why bother? I hope they don't know the theater you will be going to, and the show time. I wouldn't put it past them to just show up anyway. Reply, we don't know what theater we're going to yet, and they won't be informed once we know. Commenter 2, so, while it was very inconsiderate for them to invite themselves, basically offering to pay as a sweetener, I don't know of anyone over the age of 25 who really celebrates their birthday or expects it to be unless it's a milestone. If my parents offer to take me to dinner, I'll go, but I'd legit not turn down a free meal wherever I want to go on any day. My husband knows that I don't want or expect anything, and as the years have gone by he has understood just how unimportant my birthday is. On his birthday, same thing. I can tell that anything I do, he really appreciates but thinks it's totally unnecessary and kind of wonders why. TBH, I think we only bother with the cakes is for our children because they really want birthday cake. On the other hand, I had C-sections and my second and third kids were scheduled. My OBGYN originally wanted to do the second baby on my birthday. I'm right on the edge of Gemini/Cancer, so I was like, we don't need another gem in the house, can we push it just a little? He was born 3 days after my birthday. Yes, it was partially because I really didn't want another Gemini, but I definitely didn't want to share my birthday. So I get it in that regard. But when I was younger I would share birthday/Father's Day celebrations with the men in our family and never minded it, and I expect as my son gets onto his teen years our family will go out to a birthday dinner to celebrate both of us and I don't really care. NTA, but I do think you're kind of immature. Do it this year. Now they know it's a tradition for you and your kids and they hopefully will know better than to but in next year. If so then it's more appropriate to tell them to give you space since they already had known for a year. I also think that you told them and they didn't respect it is a bigger problem than a grown woman wanting to have a birthday tradition, but that's still weird. Reply, sounds like your and your son's birthdays are very close to mine. I'll take the opportunity to state I'm turning 32. My birthday is not an event I look forward to all year, but I do care about it and enjoy celebrating it. I don't think there's a problem with that. If I'd never been expected to share my birthday with my stepmother before, I wouldn't mind doing it now. But it happened frequently for years, so, do it this year, doesn't really apply. And I will turn down any gifts that come with strings attached, meals included. Commenter 3, unless the stepmom is younger than OP, wouldn't put past them looking at how childish dad and stepmom are behaving. Reply, she's not. I don't think I'd ever be able to look my father in the face again if she was. Commenter 4, you could always let them plan, and then when they announce the theater, just go somewhere different. Reply, it's not worth it. I don't want to cause a scene or make this a big, deal, I just want it to be over. Update, Aita for refusing to share my birthday with my stepmother. I posted here about a year ago and meant to update, but completely forgot about it. Still, I was very grateful for your replies, so I want to let you know what's been going on. First of all, as I write this, I've just celebrated my birthday, June 22nd, with my husband and kids. We watched Elio in theaters and went to a restaurant I love. It was wonderful. My father and stepmother were not involved, as they've traveled for her birthday. Secondly, your comments on my first post, as well as some other things I had going on in my life at the time, led me to reflect a lot about my relationship with my father. I've chosen to save the majority of that for therapy, but what's most relevant here is that I realized I don't really know how to celebrate my birthday. I've been expected to prioritize what others wanted since I was a teenager. The things we do and the places I'd celebrate at were rarely my picks and always for someone else's benefit. Whenever I said anything about that, I'd get told I was acting spoiled. My stepmother's presence made it a lot worse. At least when I was younger, it still felt like it was about me. I genuinely love the birthday tradition I have with my family, but I have no idea what I'd like to do otherwise. One day, me or my children might grow out of this, or these films will plummet in quality to a degree even I can't defend. If that time comes, I need a backup plan. I've spent the majority of the last year discovering things I genuinely enjoy doing. I'm almost always busy at work, so I'm still working on it, but I've made some progress. Turns out I love pinball, painting, board games and building miniatures. My abilities on all of the above range from mediocre to awful, but I have time to learn. And the list keeps growing. My husband just got me a huge Lego set for my birthday. We started working on it after the kids went to bed, and it will take us a while to finish it, but I love it already. As for my father and stepmother, after our celebration last year, which they didn't hijack, as some of you thought they would, things were rough for a while. I ended up having a few long conversations with my father about our relationship. Most relevant here, I made it very clear that the fact we couldn't at least celebrate my birthday privately upset me a lot, and I will not share my birthday with my stepmother anymore. Overall, our relationship is doing alright. Not great, but it's better than last year. I do feel like it's something we're both working on improving. I think that's everything, thanks everyone. More relevant comments. Response to a deleted comment, thanks. I feel like I noticed it a while ago, but I didn't accept how much it bothered me. Realizing I had no idea what I'd actually like to do was what pulled the rug on that. Commenter 1, just curious about the set what you are building. I just got my BF the Titanic, the big one for us to build together. I am so glad you are figuring out how much your childhood affected you and working on your boundaries. I hope you continue to thrive and build many more Lego sets in the future. Reply, the Titanic sounds awesome. I got the Natural History Museum. I'm hoping to save and get Rivendell next. Commenter 2, I'm just sad for you that your stepmother and father are like that. My stepmom's birthday is the day before mine and I usually have to fight her to get her to celebrate hers at all unless it's one of the big ones that people are coming over for because she wants to make mine a big deal by minimizing hers. Glad you're finding things that you like though, and like I tell people when I teach them to knit, it doesn't matter if it's good or not as long as you enjoy it. And mistakes are proof that it was handmade. Reply, I never had a fantastic relationship with her. There's no bad blood between us, but we're wildly different people in various ways. She also has a significant problem with boundaries, which is a big reason why I try to keep some distance, but that's a different story. Stories number 5. Random person stole a decorated reserved table. I work at a restaurant, one of those local small cutesy bistros, that's not super upscale but usually fully booked because we're in an awesome location and don't have many tables. We recently had a woman email us saying that she wants to bring her boyfriend here to celebrate a very special event. I won't say what to not make it too personal. It's not unusual to receive more detailed table requests for special occasions every now and then. It can range from booking a whole seating area for privacy to asking to put up some decor, etc. This lady didn't really ask for much, she just asked if she could pay up front to have a more secluded decorated table. We love these kind of reservations when people ask nicely and are realistic about it. We closed off a little corner of the restaurant, nothing crazy, it's still open to the rest but in a little nook that you can't see into, and put up some string lights, candles and flowers. She also came in earlier that night to put up something of her own. Again, I don't want to say what, but it was clearly a personal item. Well, the night of, the couple arrives, gives me their last name and I OFC know immediately who they are and happily lead them to their very special table. Only to find an old lady and a little kid sitting there with their belongings all over the damn place. Turns out they thought the "please wait to be seated" sign, the "closed for private event" sign and the "reserved" sign somehow did not apply to them. They barged right past everything when no one was looking. There were only 2 of us working the tables that night cause the place is small, and sure enough simply claimed the only free table. Now some people just have zero awareness, so part of me had to assume that maybe they were a little slow. I tried to confront them very nicely even though I was panicking with the couple right behind me. But oh boy, that older lady knew exactly what she was doing and immediately blew up about no one tending to their table and making them wait. I explained that this table was reserved and that they needed to leave and that the whole place was fully booked. She explained to me, loudly, that she did not care, that the other restaurants on our block were full and that her and her grandson have every right to be here. It took a lot of arguing between them and me and my co-workers, but when we threatened to call the police to have them removed she gave up. Unfortunately most of the damage was already done. It left everyone in a pretty sour mood, and to make matters even worse, the kid had tampered with the sweet woman's personal item that she had put up there right before. It wasn't a valuable, just a cute little surprise. The couple looked pretty upset, and while they didn't blame us for anything, I could just tell how close to tears the woman was. The surprise she had planned was a pretty big deal and I simply felt awful for her. I've always heard stories about having to deal with crazy people in the service industry, but this was a first for me. I'm just a student doing this some nights a week for some extra cash. My absolute deepest condolences to anyone dealing with this sh*t for a living. Stories number 6. I, 27M, just found out my girlfriend, 24F, is lying about being on a trip. Is there any hope, or am I cooked? My girlfriend Amy and I went on our first date around 1.5 years ago, took things slowly while being exclusive, and have been officially dating 1 year. Overall the relationship has been pretty good, minus some small hiccups in communication that she chalks up to her neurodivergence. Amy isn't great with texting, which I thought was a red flag at first until I found out she's like that with almost everyone, most of her friends and family included. To give a little background, Amy and a few of her girlfriends go to this conference a few states over twice per year. It's a 2-day event, which they usually turn into a 5-day vacation because it requires a flight and hotel and is in a nice city. Amy's friend group is typically very active on social media during these trips, posting on their Instagram story during all points, flights, conference, beach, etc. This weekend was supposed to be their 3rd time attending. Amy and her friends have had their flights and hotels booked for a few months, confirmed by some of their posts on social media being excited about having everything booked. Unfortunately the conference was cancelled, but they already booked everything, so they decided to still enjoy a vacation. My girlfriend and I had a date night last weekend. She was telling me how excited she was for her trip. All was good, but at the end of the date I caught a glimpse of Amy's phone. She was on her airline app and it looked like she was reading cancellation policies. We had a long day and I was tired and felt like I was snooping/being nosy, so I didn't say anything. During the week, I asked Amy to hang out the day before the flight, emphasizing that I wanted to see her before her trip. Unfortunately she was meeting up with her group of coworker friends, so she couldn't. No worries. The morning of her flight I texted her wishing her a safe flight and happy trip, and she liked my message. We haven't talked since. As I said, she's not a big texter, so we usually don't text much besides planning dates and in emergencies. I figured she was on her trip, so I haven't texted to plan a date. Now on to the meat of the issue. Amy is now supposed to be a few days into her trip and I noticed none of her friends were posting on Instagram. I thought that was weird because they usually post a lot, but I shrugged it off. That was until tonight. Amy started posting videos of her at a show. It looked fun and I didn't think twice about it. Until the ending, where the show host called out, "Thank you," and then the name of the major city nearby where we live, approximately 30-minute drive. I looked up the name of the show, and of course, it was in that nearby city this weekend, meaning she wasn't on that vacation after all, and never thought to say anything to me about it. I did a little snooping on Venmo and found out that over 2 weeks ago Amy's friend paid her back the money that Amy had sent her for the hotel and car rental. So she's known the trip was cancelled for 2 weeks and hasn't said anything to me every time I brought it up. Where do I go from here? I feel like I'm suddenly spiraling, going crazy overthinking everything lately to see if I've missed any signs. I've already started assuming the worst and I'm panicking. I'm out of town for the weekend and I feel like this has totally thrown off my trip. Is this worth a conversation or is the relationship already over? Is there any reason she would have not said something by now? Even if she tells me the trip was cancelled right when I see her before I confront her, would that still justify not telling me until after the trip? Please, any advice is greatly appreciated. Thank you. Edit. Her best friend just uploaded a picture of them together during the show. So I know she wasn't there with some other guy. But that doesn't explain the lying. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, sure seems like she pretended the trip was happening to do something else, with someone else. That's your worst case assumption, right? If so, what's her plan? Keep pretending she went, keep you in the dark. Hope no friend outs her. Pretty stupid. If she's seeing someone else, she should just dump you. Reply, yeah, that's my assumption. I don't really see any other reason why she would have pretended the trip was still planned. Even if I misunderstood the timeline of the trip getting cancelled, like if that Venmo payment was for something else, I'd assume she would have told me when I texted her the morning of her flight. Commenter 2, I don't like to just assume the worst, but I don't see why she didn't mention that the trip was cancelled unless she was up to something she didn't want you to know about. Especially if she'd known for over 2 weeks but was hyping up how thrilled she was to go the weekend before. But then again she posted the concert she was at, so she wasn't exactly being too careful. I'm not sure, could it just be a case of poor/miscommunication? Reply, exactly why I'm so confused. Like if she was purposely lying to me and trying to hide where she was, why would she post the show? Especially the last clip mentioning the city name. Was she just assuming I wouldn't know what the show was? Maybe she's trying to get me to break up with her. I'm really lost, but I feel like I'm gaslighting myself. It definitely wasn't miscommunication. When I tried to plan the date the day before her flight, I specifically mentioned the trip and she said nothing. And I wished her a safe flight the morning of the flight. I really just don't know. Update 1. Hey everyone, I had some DMs asking for an update, so here it is. To quickly summarize my last post, a few weeks back my girlfriend was supposed to go on a trip a few states away to go to a conference. I came to find out that the conference was cancelled and she didn't actually go, and never even bothered to tell me. She lied by omission about it by not telling me when I texted her to have a good flight. I found out she didn't go because her best friend posted a picture of them at a show in our local nearby city, so here we are, almost a month later. I was wrecked and spiraling these past few weeks, and after being together for almost 2 years I was too panicked to reach out and ask to see her. During the 3 weeks since her planned trip, she hasn't reached out once to me. That was until yesterday, when she casually reached out like we hadn't just ignored each other for 3 weeks and asked to see a movie. So I just finally saw her tonight. In the car I asked about her trip. Her facial response was really weird, like she got caught off guard. I'm guessing she was expecting me to forget about it after a few weeks of not seeing her. She just said it was okay, which instantly confirmed my suspicions. I asked her what she had done and she said she went to that conference one day, which as I said in my last post was cancelled, and went to a show after before returning home the day after I made my original post. I asked her which and she claimed the show that was in our local city. I was driving at the time and it was dark out, so I waited to confront her as I didn't want to get emotional and endanger us. I confronted her for lying about the trip, doubling down and lying about the conference, and tripling down to lie about the show. Her immediate response was to start deflecting, saying that if this is making me upset, to imagine how she felt that her conference and trip was cancelled. She said how she was so heartbroken and upset that the conference was cancelled, which was cancelled 5 weeks ago, that she didn't want to talk about it. She kept saying that she doesn't owe it to me or anybody else to tell us about her business and what's going on in her life. I of course called her out for gaslighting me, to which her response was that she was not gaslighting me. Kind of ironic, I guess. When I talked about how it made me feel and that she damaged my trust for her, she again tried to belittle my feelings by rolling her eyes and saying that it was only a show. This conversation ended up opening to a much bigger issue in our relationship that I didn't mention in my last post. Generally, Amy treated me really poorly throughout the relationship. She was hot and cold, put zero effort into communication, and it never felt like she made a priority. She'd give me zero affection or compliments despite drooling and crushing over male celebrities all day. She's made little effort to connect me and her family and friends. We've talked about all of this a few times now. She would always say she was overwhelmed with some new excuse and promise it would get better. I would cave in and agree to work through things. As expected, things never got better. This time was the same, where she blamed a new job for being overwhelmed and that's why she's been so distant. But this time was different. I guess her blatant lie to my face and your guys' comments in the back of my mind gave me power to put my foot down. I broke up with her then and there. She kept begging me for one more chance, to think on it for a few days, that she cares about me and didn't intend to hurt me, all that nonsense. But the whole time I was the one bawling, and there wasn't a tear on her face. It really broke my heart ending things, but I've also really grown to hate myself for putting up with her treatment for so long. I'm hurting a lot right now, and I'm scared to get back into the dating world after 2 years of aging and some weight gain. I really loved her with every bit of my heart and I'm terrified to picture my life without her. I really want to call her up and give her one final chance to get things right, but I know I'd never forgive myself if she didn't change and broke my heart again. I'm hurting bad and I could really use some words of encouragement right now. Thank you all. Relevant comments. OOP needs to take time to heal and move on from the relationship. Block the ex's socials. Reply, I wrote this before bed and just woke up from one of the crappiest sleeps of my life. I'm still feeling pretty crushed, but hearing this and everybody else's comments has me feeling a tiny bit better. It's hard for me to be on my phone RN and resist the urge to check up on her socials, so I'm not sure how much I'll reply, but I want everyone to know that I've read each and every comment. Thanks again. OOP on having better communication with his ex prior to her trip. Reply, sorry if it was a bit unclear. I've gotten a few comments with mistakes about the timeline of things, so I'll clear it up in this comment, since it's one of the newer ones. Sorry if I ramble a little here, the wounds are still very fresh. The trip was only supposed to be 4 days. She never ended up going though, of course, hence what I first confronted her about. She was in our hometown the entire time, presumably sleeping at her own house. She lives with her family, unless she was cheating on me. While I did ask her what she was actually doing during what should have been her trip and during those 3 weeks of no contact, I didn't have the heart to ask if she was cheating, and also knew she would deny it even if she was. Maybe I'm naive, but I genuinely don't think she was cheating on me. While she treated me like trash and didn't seem like she cared much about me, she never struck me as somebody capable of cheating and has been cheated on before. She's also not a very physically open person and struggles to be intimate with anybody she's not dating. Her reason for lying about the trip was that she was feeling really sad that she didn't get to go and didn't want to talk about it. To me that's such a BS excuse. She could have just told me that she didn't go but is hurting and doesn't want to talk about it. I don't think I'll ever know why she didn't tell me the truth, but that's something I'll just have to live with. In a way I'm glad that she lied to me. It helped me snap out of things and break up with her. If she told me the truth about the trip off the bat, I was prepared to talk to her about the 3 weeks of silence and her emotional neglect and try to repair our relationship again, for the probably 8th or 9th time. So I guess it was a good thing she lied to me. Her reason for not contacting me during those weeks was that she's been overwhelmed with her first real job, that she started approximate 1.5 months before these 3 weeks of silence. She did send me a handful, maybe 10, TikToks during that time, through TikTok, not text, but I would consider that more breadcrumbing than actually reaching out. Early in our relationship she would spam me with dozens of TikToks when she was thinking about me, so sending one every few days during this silence felt like a sad attempt to keep me around. Admittedly, this isn't the first time she's gone a few weeks without contacting me. There have been other times where I felt like this relationship was one-sided, so I stopped reaching out to see if she'd contact me. In most of these cases she wouldn't contact me for a few weeks. But there's always some big excuse. Her grandma was sick and in the hospital, she was doing interviews for a new job, final exams, etc. etc. I will admit that I know she shuts down under stress and tends to isolate a lot, but I've talked with her about this a few times before and every time she told me that she promised she'd work on it. She also had no issue seeing her friends many times while overwhelmed and isolating. I'm not sure that me not asking her if she's cheated boils down to bad communication from me, but everybody is allowed their own opinion, I guess. I will admit that not contacting her myself for those 3 weeks isn't exactly great communication, but after 2 years of doing what I felt was the absolute most for communication and her not reciprocating, I guess I was feeling a bit burnt out. I didn't explicitly ask her if she was cheating, but I did imply it by asking what she was doing during that weekend that she felt she needed to hide. That's when she deflected, telling me how she spent that time sad about the trip, despite going to that show. I did ask her what she was doing those 3 weeks. Of course she said she was working her normal 9 to 5, and she works a part-time job in the evenings twice a week. She gave me a few examples of other things she did, times where she met up with friends, she spent a weekend at her best friend's house an hour south, which I can confirm that she did from social media, a doctor's appointment, etc. She didn't give me a full agenda of what she was doing, nor did I expect her to as I'm not her babysitter, but she probably named 4 to 5 different times she hung out with friends plus her job 2 evenings per week and the doctor's appointment. Like I said in my update post, she's made almost no effort to connect me with her friends and family. I've only met her family in passing and brief convos, don't have their contact info, and none of them are on social media minus her little brother who I barely know and do not follow. I wasn't about to make a fool of myself and look like the crazy insecure boyfriend by contacting her little brother and seeing what she's doing and why she's not reaching out to me. At this point, what she was exactly doing during that time doesn't matter to me as much as her non-interest in seeing or talking to me. Something I didn't mention is that my parents live in the southeast of the US and got blasted by the back-to-back hurricanes, their lives being at serious risk for one of them, up to 12-foot storm surges, and she didn't even check up on me/them during either of them. She waited until yesterday by saying something casual like, "Oh, by the way, how are your parents? They were in their state for the hurricanes, right?" Her not even caring to reach out when it was happening hurt a lot and showed me how little she cares about me and my family. I had a lot of friends and family reaching out to me to check on my parents when I had lost touch with them for a day, but the one person I really wanted to lean on for support didn't show any care. Completely agree that the worst part was her lying to me about it and doubling down. If she was honest off the bat about the conference being cancelled when I saw her yesterday, I was foolish enough to be willing to try to work through the communication issues again. Her lying about it again lit a fire under me that this wasn't worth repairing and to get out. I wish that made it any easier and less painful, but that's life I guess. Update 2. Edit 2, 1 week later. Hi all, just going to make a update cause I've seen this post reach a few subreddits and TikTok accounts, including my favorite TikTok Reddit stories account LOL. I've replied to a decent bit of comments providing some more context and clarification such as timelines of things, why I stayed for so long, why I accepted her neurodivergence as an excuse, etc. I'm sorry I can't get to all of the comments, there's so many. I've just come for a few brief updates and clarifications. I'll try to keep it short but I do tend to ramble a little. Like you all suggested, I've removed Amy on social media. I did it really late one night when I couldn't sleep, a few hours after she normally sleeps. I woke up about 5 hours later for work, around the time when she wakes up, and decided I should block her so I don't get ever tempted to look at her profiles or give her a chance to contact me. She already beat me to the punch and blocked me first thing in the morning. I'm not sure how to block her when I'm blocked, but I guess this gets the job done. I wanted to address one comment. A lot of people are asking why I originally said our relationship was pretty good and waited to drop the bombshell of everything until my update. Honestly, I just wanted unbiased opinions on the original situation, like if there was any reason why somebody in a healthy relationship would have not told me about the trip cancellation. I was naive and was hoping that there'd be some reasoning that I wasn't seeing, and that we could work through this issue. I knew that Amy had been treating me poorly outside of this issue, but it felt like her treatment of me was kind of on the upswing and that we were growing closer, until she stonewalled me for 3 weeks after my first post. Before my first post, I felt like one final talk with her would really keep us on the right path and hopefully fix things for good. Obviously I was naive and stupid for thinking that, and let my love for her blind me to the obvious, but hindsight is 20/20. It's hard to recognize that emotionally abusive relationships aren't going to change when you're in them. Reflecting back, there were always times when she's briefly treat me well to pull me back in. I'd guess that's what was going on recently, but who knows. And to the people suggesting that we weren't actually in a relationship, that we had different agreements of what the relationship meant, and that I belong in a psych ward, thanks. Appreciate that. But no. When we were still seeing each other, as in, after a few dates, I specifically asked her to be exclusive and she said yes. Once I felt ready, I sat her down, told her how much I cared about her, and asked her to be my girlfriend. She agreed and we've been BF/GF ever since. We've posted each other on Valentine's Day, and both had pictures of each other on social media. When talking to others, she introduced me to them as her boyfriend. We've been on weekend trips away together with my friends. Early on, we had conversations about what we want in terms of kids, marriage, where to live, etc. to make sure we were on the same page. While I might have been naive and had heavy rose-tinted glasses, I'm not some psycho stalker. She knew we were in a relationship, treated me like crap, acknowledged that my feelings were valid all of the times that I brought up her treatment of me, and when I broke up with her she begged me to take a few days and reconsider. This wasn't some fantasy you'd see in a creepy movie. To end off my update, I'm doing okay. I was really sad the first 2 days, but that's past. I am still in pain, grieving, and thinking about her, but there is some relief from all the comments reinforcing that I made the right choice. Things are hard right now, but I know I've made the best choice in for me and my well-being. Thanks all again, and hopefully this is the end of my time here. Stories number 7. Today I realized I don't love my girlfriend. Last 4th of July, aka last Friday, I, am 28, went on a trip to a local park with my girlfriend, 41. I wasn't really looking forward much to it since my idea of fun is different from hers, but I did end up liking the park and want to visit again sometime. We were walking around for hours until closing time, then took her home afterwards. On the way to her apartment, she said something to annoy me on purpose, to which she said, "Am I annoying?" in a playful way. I retorted with, "Very much, I barely tolerate you when you do that," in the same joking tone, and we both chuckled at it. Right as I was dropping her off, she asked me if I actually just tolerate her and don't really love her. I told her it was just a joke, that she's reading too much into it, and she just laughed, said, "Okay bye," and got out of my car without giving me a kiss, like she usually does. I didn't read too much into it and just went home. Today I woke up with a wall of text from her basically asking the same thing, and that I more often than not I make her doubt my feelings towards her because of my ambivalence in that regard. I started arguing with her about the situation, and it made me realize I was acting like a child. She was right about every single thing she said, and I couldn't contest her in that. She asked if I saw a future with her and honestly told her no. I don't want to think about settling down just yet, and she was already talking about marriage and things like that. So she asked if I loved her, and I told her I do, just not the same way she loves me. I do care about her a lot, but I honestly don't see myself getting married for a number of reasons, mainly because of self-doubt and confidence on my part. So we had a long talk about our relationship, and she made me realize I was just attracted to her and not in love with her. I was never really touchy-feely or affectionate with her outside of the deed, but I didn't mind when she did that kind of stuff. At the end of it all, I just decided to leave her be and find someone who will actually find someone who will adore the person she is. She did say she was fine remaining friends, but I'll see how long that lasts. Stories number 8. AITJ for refusing to drive my brother to work after he refused to help me when my car broke down on the side of the road. TLDR, my brother refused to help me when my car broke down. I refused to help him when his did. He thinks I'm being petty. Our mom agrees with him I don't. I'm 28 and live about 15 minutes away from my younger brother, who is 24. We aren't particularly close, but we've always had an unspoken agreement that we help each other out when it counts. We've traded favors over the years, small stuff, like watching each other's pets or helping with errands. Nothing dramatic, but enough to feel like we had each other's backs. About 4 months ago, my car died on the way to work. It wasn't just a flat tire or something I could fix on the fly. I was completely stuck on the side of the road, late for work, with no nearby tow options that didn't involve a long wait. I called my brother because I knew his schedule was open that morning. I figured, worst case, he could swing by and give me a ride to work, and I'd figure the rest out from there. When I called, he answered and immediately sounded like he had just woken up. I explained the situation, told him I was stranded, and asked if he could come get me. He paused for a second, then said something like, "Yeah, I'm not really feeling like driving right now." That was it. No offer to help later. No concern. Not even a fake excuse. Just a straight-up no, because he didn't feel like it. I ended up calling a friend who drove 20 minutes out of their way to get me. I was over an hour late to work and received a write-up. I didn't make a big deal out of it at the time, but the whole thing stuck with me. My brother could have helped and just chose not to, for no real reason. Now, the situation has flipped. His car is in the shop for at least a week, and suddenly he's calling me every morning asking for rides to work. I said no. I just reminded him what he said to me when I needed help. If he wasn't in the mood to help me back then, I'm not in the mood to help him now. Simple as that. Naturally, he's upset. He says I'm being petty and holding a grudge over something that wasn't even that serious. He insists that it's just a ride and that family shouldn't keep score. I told him I agree, family shouldn't keep score, but I didn't start keeping score. He's the one who broke the unspoken contract. Now our mother has gotten involved, and she's siding with him. She told me I was being cold and punishing him when I should be setting an example. According to her, being the older sibling means taking the high road, even when it's not fair. I told her that I'm tired of being the one who's expected to be generous while he gets to act like a child and face no consequences. So now it's a whole family thing. My brother's sulking, my mom is disappointed, and I'm stuck wondering if maybe I did go too far. From my perspective, I just decided not to give someone special treatment after they made it clear they wouldn't do the same for me. Am I the jerk? Stories number 9. I'm eloping on Friday because my family wants us to delay the wedding until my brother gets released from prison. We don't want to wait, so we are just going to the courthouse by ourselves. Ever since I got engaged a month ago, my parents, my brother, and some of my other family have been pressuring us to wait to get married until my other brother is released from prison. My M29 fiancé, F29, and I plan to have the wedding in November. My brother will be in prison for at least another 5 years. There is no guarantee he will be released then, that is just the earliest he could be released. My brother went to prison over my nephew's death. My brother and his wife were convicted of manslaughter because the law required everyone on the boat to wear a life jacket and my nephew wasn't wearing one. His death destroyed my entire family. I don't want to wait another 5 years, and neither does my fiancé. We have been together for 3 years and we are ready now. I know my brother going to prison was hard on everyone, including me. I have missed him being around for so many years. I thought if I talked to my brother he would be understanding and tell everyone to stop pressuring us, but instead he got mad at me for wanting to get married while he was in prison. After that, my fiancé and I decided we are just going to go to the courthouse on Friday by ourselves. No one in her family will care if we elope, and honestly we are done with the pressure. We aren't going to tell anyone until afterwards. Neither of us care about having a big wedding, and I am so tired of everyone telling us to wait until my brother gets out. I don't care if anyone is angry with us. I honestly don't. Comments. Commenter 1. Your family is really entitled. The world isn't waiting for your brother to get out of a prison. Your entire family is insane for thinking you had to wait. Obviously, brother didn't ask for permission to do his crime, so him getting upset that you're living your life is ridiculous. Commenter 2. Why are you delaying your wedding? Because my brother committed manslaughter against his kid. What a truly cheerful tone to set for the wedding planning. Commenter 3. When I read the title I thought it would be waiting like a month or two. When OP said 5 years, I thought that was just ridiculous. Wait 5 years pfft. Commenter 4. A minimum of 5 years. Commenter 5. They are seriously asking you to wait 5 years to get married? Your life is to set on hold for over 5 years. Girl, no is a complete sentence. Tell them you don't want to hear about it. Walk away or hang the phone up if they continue. Ask, is there are to be no babies born until he get out? No holidays. No graduations. No family events at all until he gets out. They are crazy. Update. I just want to say how much I appreciated the supportive comments in my first post. My wife and I did go to the courthouse on Friday, just the two of us. We, F29 and M29, didn't tell a single person beforehand. We spent Friday and yesterday at home together. Today, before my wife and I both went to work, we called her parents and her sisters to tell them, and then we called my parents. After that we emailed or messaged some other family and friends. Everyone in her family understood why we eloped. My family not so much, but I don't care after the way they acted. My brother, and his wife, have been in prison for several years already, and the earliest they could be released is the year 2030. They are in prison for manslaughter because my nephew's death. The law requires everyone on the boat to wear a life jacket. No one on board, including my toddler nephew, was wearing one. My brother and my sister-in-law were both convicted of manslaughter after my nephew died. My wife and I didn't want to wait 5 years to get married. Also, prison rules wouldn't allow for my brother to watch a live stream or see a video later on. We didn't want to have a vow renewal or reception after my brother gets out. We don't see a need to have another ceremony or to delay our reception. We have been clear to everyone we know that we don't want another ceremony or to have a reception or party, now or later. We don't think there's anything wrong with the focus being on the couple on their wedding day and not one of the guests. I absolutely hate what my brother did, and I was angry at him for a long time. My nephew was a toddler and I think about him all the time and what he would be like now. I also miss my brother being around, and this tragedy and my brother going to jail has been difficult for everyone in my family, including me. It doesn't mean I can't be angry at my brother for how he acted about my wedding, but outside of that I still do miss my brother. I don't regret eloping though. Friday was the best day and I love my wife. We have no regrets about our courthouse wedding. Comments. Commenter 1. I'm truly sorry about your family's situation and I admire your decision to prioritize your happiness. It's understandable that you didn't want to wait, and it's great that you found a way to make it work for both of you. Commenter 2. Exactly, sometimes you just have to put yourself first. Really happy you made it all work out in the end, wishing you the best married life. Reply. Thank you. I thought I would feel guilty about eloping and not telling my family about it, but I don't. My wife and I are happy and have no guilt about any of it. Stories number 10. Aita for not wanting my boyfriend to come over anymore because he's too much of a clean freak. So I lied to my boyfriend and told him I'd be out of town this weekend just so he wouldn't come over. I feel bad, but I honestly needed a break. I'm starting to get really fed up with how obsessive he is about cleanliness. For context, I have 2 cats. I vacuum 2 to 3 times a day just to keep the fur under control, and I try my best to keep things clean. But you know how it is, sometimes fur still floats around or lands in spots you miss. The issue is, he'll notice a single strand of cat fur and act like it's the end of the world. There were times he literally woke me up in the middle of the night to complain about one piece of fur floating in the air. I'd say I'll vacuum in the morning, but he keeps poking me until I get up and do it right then and there. He also hates when my cats go into the room, so whenever he visits, I have to keep them out, which feels unfair because it's their home too. He wears black all the time despite me suggesting not to, so obviously fur sticks to him more, and then he complains right in front of me like it's my fault. Out of frustration, I cancelled our weekend plans just so I could have some peace and quiet. He's been staying over every weekend lately, and honestly, I don't feel at ease in my own space anymore. I don't know. I feel kind of shallow and petty, and maybe I'm being unreasonable. Aita here for needing space and not wanting him around because of this. Top comments. Commenter 1, you, cats have fur. You're going to get cat fur on you if you come over. Stop your incessant whining and deal with it. Or if you can't, don't come over anymore. Your choice. Commenter 2, NTA, but I think this is part of a bigger problem. He clearly has a problem with cats. And you have too. Seriously, think about if you have a future. Commenter 3, NTA. This is next level OCD. He's coming into your space, their space. I'd cut your losses and find someone who is a little less compulsive. Commenter 4, girlfriend, you need a new BF who likes animals. You are a very clean person to do all of that vacuuming. BF sounds exhausting. You two are just not compatible. Update, hello, I just wanted to share an update because things took a turn I honestly didn't see coming. So, after I lied and told him I'd be out of town, he got suspicious and showed up at my place on Saturday. I wasn't expecting him though. I was literally in my pajamas, curled up on the couch with my cats, enjoying a peaceful day. He knocked, and before I could even process what was happening, he was inside complaining about all the fur everywhere. I asked him to leave, but he kept ranting about how disgusting it was. Then my oldest cat, who's super friendly but sheds a lot, jumped up on the couch next to him. He freaked out, stood up, and shoved my cat off the couch. My poor cat hit the floor and ran under the bed. He's okay now. I completely lost it. That was the final straw. I told him to get out and that we were done for good. He tried to apologize and say it was an accident, but I didn't care. If you can't respect my cats, you can't be in my life. I honestly feel so much relief now. I can breathe again in my own home without feeling like I live in a museum. My cats are back to lounging wherever they please, as they should. So yeah, I guess I have my answer now. Thanks for letting me vent here and thanks for those who commented on my last post, so much appreciated. Relevant comments. Downvoted commenter, you sounds like a slob and a liar, but he is abusive toward animals so he's the bigger AH in this situation. You came out ahead in this situation, but clean your shit up, girl. Reply, LMAO, I vacuum multiple times a day. I just have cats, not a sterile lab face with tears of joy, and yeah, lying wasn't great but I needed the break, and literally got it LOL. Commenter 1, I said this to you in your last post too, you are going to be so happy with your next boyfriend all cuddling together with your cats. Glad you took the trash out. ETA, obviously NTA. Reply, thank you honestly, I'm already happier just having my cats back on the couch with me. Next time I'm picking someone who brings treats for them, not complaints. Commenter 2, being a clean freak doesn't make you an animal abuser, I bet he hates cats and was using that as an excuse. Reply, yeah, I think you're right, it was never really about the fur at all. OOP needs to change her locks if her ex had a key to her place. Reply, yeah, I saw a few people mention that yesterday too, he did have a spare key from a while back, which honestly I forgot about until he just let himself in. Don't worry though, I already changed the locks last night. Not taking any chances. Commenter 3, he didn't just not respect your cats, he didn't respect you. You told him you were unavailable that weekend but he came over anyway. You shouldn't have to lie to spend a weekend alone in your apartment. And then he's inside the apartment and he's sitting on your sofa, even though you were clear that you didn't want to spend the weekend with him. Stories number 11. Aita for asking my future in-laws for money, my fiancé's parents are loaded. Old money loaded. They can afford what I'm asking no problem. I make very good money at my job. I'm currently 27 and earn over $170,000 a year. Tim is a teacher. He doesn't make as much but he has a trust fund so he works sort of as public service. It's big in his family. Recently I had a weird conversation with him and his folks. They think after the wedding I should quit working and be a stay-at-home mom. I thought they were joking and kind of laughed. They are perfectly serious. They think it's emasculating that I earn more than Tim. Over the course of my career I will earn much more than him. But his trust fund is low 7 figures. He could afford to pay me what I earn yearly but he can't due to the stipulations of his trust. His mom on the other hand has lots of interest built up in her trust, so I offered a solution I thought was fair. They set up an unrecoverable trust for me. They must contribute my gross earnings yearly with bumps for anticipated raises and promotions. The deposits would be for the next 35 years. That was I'm a stay-at-home mom, Tim is the breadwinner, and I'm protected in the case of a divorce. They went fucking nuts. Apparently I'm ridiculous for thinking they will give me money. I offered a compromise. I sign a prenup wherein I am entitled to half of Tim's trust fund in the case of divorce if I give up my career, also not acceptable to them. I'm kind of at a loss. Do they honestly think I would give up my career with zero safety net? My mom says I'm being kind of rude putting everything in such stark monetary terms. I think I'm being reasonable. What do you think? Stories number 12. Aita, for calling out my husband for changing up the rules in our open marriage. I, 35F, am in an open relationship with my husband, 36M. It was over the summer he mentioned it to me. I wouldn't say I was totally for it but it took some getting used to. Now everything is going great but recently my husband keeps changing the rules. Once I started dating Evan, 45M, that's when he started acting differently. My husband and I agreed on a don't ask don't tell policy but keeps pestering me about the details of our relationship. I give him a little here and there but never the explicit stuff. Everything positive I mention about Evan he downplays or critiques. Last week, I planned a date with Evan and asked him to watch the kids. He agreed. He was to get back home by 9 but texted me to say he's doing overtime that night. I was left scrambling for a sitter at the last minute. This isn't the first time he has done this. Luckily this time I got a hold of a sitter but I could not stay as long as I was hoping for. Afterward, he acted as if everything was okay. He began policing me when I left the house and began picking my outfits apart. Expressing concern about how the neighbors would perceive me. To avoid conflict, I started wearing jackets to cover up before heading out. Then came the issue of Evan dropping me off. He worried about the neighbors seeing a strange car pull up at night. This forced me to do lunch dates. It wasn't a bother. I would bring my laptop to Evan's and work at his place, however, I preferred the dinner dates because I got a chance to dress up more. Changing up the time seemed to alleviate some tension but I still feel like I was compromising too much. He didn't even want me to drive to the dates but when Evan pays for an Uber or drops me off it's an issue. It makes no sense. The breaking point was when Evan sent flowers to the house. My husband lost it claiming it's dangerous for a strange man to know our address when we have kids inside. I will say he was right about this. I did drop the ball however, he insisted that I shouldn't bring home any gifts at all going forward, arguing it violated our don't ask don't tell rule. He used to joke about me not getting chivalry in my open relationship and now that I'm getting dates it's a big deal. I asked him if he doesn't take the women he sleeps with on dates and he said no it's strictly intercourse and none of that lovey-dovey bullsh that I'm doing. I confronted my husband about these rules and he just brushed it off like it was nothing. Saying, it's just a respect thing, I was really enjoying this but he's sucking the fun out of it and it just feels highly stressful. Comments. Commenter 1. Your husband wanted to have a wife and to still sleep with whomever he liked. He didn't want that for you. Come on now, surely you realize that. Commenter 2. To me, it seems like husband wanted NSA intercourse with people other than his wife without any of the emotions that come with either an additional girlfriend or hurting his wife. However, wife found someone who also respects and appreciates her, and isn't using her like a whole like how husband is doing his part of the open relationship. So I think this is extra incensing for him. He's emotionally removing himself just to get extra pussy. She found someone who will put up with the weird rules and treat her well. It's not just the intercourse, it's that she's getting treated well. Commenter 3. Yeah, not everyone can enjoy intercourse with random, one-night strangers. Clearly that's not her bag, and he should have known that. Or maybe he did and that's why he thought it would all fall into place nicely for him. Maybe he thought he could have it all while she was at home not sleeping with anyone else. Commenter 4. NTA question. Does your husband actually hook up with other women? Reading between the lines I wouldn't be surprised if things weren't working out for him. If this is going to work, you can't just agree to, don't ask, don't tell, and call it a day. Rules have to be in place. If he only wants intercourse relationships outside of the marriage, without emotional intimacy, that's a fine rule if you agree to it. It's also fine to change the rules after they've been established, but that should be based on a conversation where everyone is on the same page. He shouldn't be able to change or establish the rules on his own and get mad that you haven't been following them. Reply: I think he does. He dresses up on the weekend to go out and comes in late. We both agreed to emotional intimacy/ons casual. It's just the nitpicking that's too much. I don't mind having a discussion, but when I'm met with, "It's not that serious," that's when I get pissed. Commenter 5. You need to see this for what it is. He opened the marriage without understanding that it meant you would be going on dates too. He never wanted the rules to be fair, so starting from that premise is only going to get him subverting any discussions. He just thought out all the fun he would be having. Now he is treating you like shit because he can't stand that what is good for the gander is good for the goose. You need to bottom line it for him. Open marriages are not easy to maintain. Most couples can't handle it. The only way to handle it is to set clear rules and follow them. One thing I will say is that your partner needs to be your primary, so if both of you are putting all your efforts into getting laid outside of the relationship, you will trash the marriage. You need regular date nights and check-ins, etc. It also takes a lot of trust and respect for your partner. In other words, you need to put work into your marriage to make it work, open or closed. There is plenty of literature out there on how to make this work if you really want it to, but it is work. Opening a marriage isn't a quick release valve to save a marriage for people who aren't good and communicating and take their spouse for granted. Update: you guys were right, this was a shit show. I'm not sure where to start, but we are getting a divorce that he in fact did not change and became way more possessive and controlling while changing the rules. Everything I did was either wrong or inconsiderate. Evan had planned a weekend trip to Cabo to celebrate a new business venture. I asked my husband if he was okay with it weeks in advance. He enthusiastically agreed, mentioning I deserved the trip. He even told me to make sure I flood his phone with pics. I told him I was going to stay with Evan the night before for easier commute. He insisted on taking me to the airport instead, since it was our last night until Tuesday. However, when it was time to leave, he overslept. Despite urging him to get up to the point that I pulled the covers off and turned off the air, he spent an entire hour in the bathroom. Then, to make matters worse, he didn't fill the tank. I told him the evening before. I called an Uber, which was another hour late, but luckily I got to enjoy my trip. I let it slide and moved on. Boy oh boy, I wish I never went on that trip because things got worse. It's like I was being punished for the trip. He became incredibly invasive in my personal relationships. He wanted to know what my intercourse life with Evan was like. If he was better, etc. He used to play it off like it was not a big deal to him. Then I caught him snooping through my phone. It was too much. I didn't understand because Evan was no longer the only man I was seeing, but Evan triggered him the most. If that wasn't enough, he had his friends over for boys' night. I was getting ready for girls' night. Before I left, he said out loud, "You're really gonna leave me to go fuck him," in front of his friends. The embarrassment and humiliation I felt, even typing this. I just sat in my car and cried so much, and that's when I knew it was done. He apologized, mentioned he was drunk. I don't buy it one bit. He has never acted like this. This open relationship has left me drained mentally and emotionally, and it wasn't even my idea to begin with. I have filed for divorce, but he keeps begging for reconciliation, but I can't. Before anyone comments, I know you told me so, sigh. Comments. Commenter 1. He didn't want an open marriage, he wanted your permission to sleep with others while you were not allowed the same. NTA then or now, enjoy yourself. Commenter 2. This nta, op, if he ever says anything in front of people again, call him out and say he was the one who wanted to open the relationship. Your husband wanted to sleep around and didn't realize you'd be having fun too. Commenter 3. I also wonder if it's not working out for him as much as he hoped it would. Commenter 4. Yeah, he probably slept with whoever he wanted to sleep with and it wasn't as great as he thought, and he isn't getting as many girls as he thought he would. Commenter 5. Isn't that how these stories usually go? Husband demands open marriage so he can screw around, discovers that he's not that attractive and women aren't lining up to be with them while their wives are picking up guys right and left. Then demands their wives stop meeting others, and the wives meanwhile have found there are much better men out there than the assholes they married and file for divorce. Stories number 13. I found my girlfriend of 8 years cheating intercourse tape. Her family, close friends, and cybercrime police are involved. I'm fucking numb. TLDR, NN acquaintance contacts me through a close friend and shows me a video of her infidelity he found on a porn site. I confront her about it and she goes into a mental breakdown. She didn't consent being videoed and they tell the police about it. Her family, parents and older sister, are handling that. She's still an emotional wreck and needs me to handle her anxiety and depressive episodes. I want to end the relationship but help her anyways until I'm sure she won't do anything drastic. Almost 3 weeks ago a good friend of mine, Alex, and an acquaintance, Mike, got hold of a video of my girlfriend, Jamie, fucking another man. Mike found this browsing through porn sites with niche themes and by chance, recognized Jamie. Got into contact with Alex about it where both of them told me about the infidelity. When Alex and Mike told me of the infidelity, I went somewhere between shock and numb. I couldn't really say anything until I saw the video where I proceeded to puke my guts out. I couldn't even sit through a minute of it. The fact that it was edited to go straight into the action with Jamie's face clearly visible didn't help. We drove Mike home and Alex had good sense to force me to spend the night at his place rather than go home where I share an apartment with Jamie with no idea how that would end. We shared some beers mostly in silence. Alex did try to make me open up on what I felt about Jamie's infidelity, but I was just numb. I didn't know what I felt and told him so. I felt like wading through water with no thought in mind other than what was in front of me. Alex didn't force any more and I passed out some time later. When I woke up, I recovered enough sense to realize that our relationship was most likely over. I go straight home through public transport, most likely brooding and or looking pissed. I wonder what the other passengers thought when they saw me looking like shit while trying to emulate Batman. I get home and catch her getting ready to go out, asked me where I was and why I didn't contact her. I don't bother answering and just told her we needed to talk. We sit down facing each other on our kitchen table that we built from scratch in my grandfather's farm and that random thought pretty much broke the dam. A lot of stuff happened, a lot of harsh words was said, accusations, and blame. Too many details to describe but essentially, I immediately broke down in tears and asked her how the fuck she could ruin this relationship we worked so hard on. She's confused and wanted an explanation. I drop the bomb and show the video. She cries, begs for forgiveness, but I hear nothing. More crying and cursing until I tell her that we're over. That was it and she just shuts off. She slumped down and closed her eyes, still crying, but says nothing. This gets me out of anger and I try to figure out what she's doing. Talking to her, hard and gentle prodding, nothing. Absolutely unresponsive, so I just drag her to our bed and lay her there. I go back to our kitchen and call her parents, Alice and Julio. I simply told them they needed to come and that their daughter is suffering a mental breakdown. I say nothing more than just telling them that they needed to see us and that what was happening needed to be face to face to explain. I shut my phone off, go back to kitchen and think about what the hell just happened. Her parents rushed to our apartment demanding WTF happened. I don't tell them about Jamie's infidelity but just say she needed mental help, she's on the bed acting comatose but otherwise, okay. They couldn't bring her out of it and eventually I had to explain. I didn't want to do it without Jamie being able to explain herself. I showed them the video and they're heartbroken, told them we had an argument, I didn't hurt her, but she probably couldn't handle the stress and broke down. They decide to bring Jamie to her university's mental health clinic. I decide not to go with them. The next day, Jamie eventually wakes up. She's stable and responsive. There, she says that the video was not consented. Her family decide to report this to cybercrime police. Jamie's family don't grill her with her mental state being the way it is, but her parents are obviously ashamed and aren't sure what to do other than what the psychologist recommends, which is to let Jamie rest for a while and support her until they're sure she doesn't implode, then was sent home to her parents. This was all relayed to me by her older sister, Jackie, who's trying to be the mediator. She asked me if I really was going to end the relationship. I respond that I'm not sure if we can even salvage it. 2 days later, Jamie's parents ask me to visit them for a talk. I agree and go the next day. Jamie's parents and her older sister are present. We go to their living room and sit down. They looked sad and tired and I felt the same. Jamie will be the last topic of our talk. First is me. They wanted my parents to be involved. I feel disrespected as we're already adults plus me and my father are tense, but I relent as I'm already tired and a bit out of my depth. Marriage was in discussion in the past after all. Finally, we talk about Jamie. She's stuck in her room, miserable and ashamed, otherwise, okay. She'll stay with her parents for now. When she's needed by the police she can stay with Jackie in a hotel. They understand that I needed space. They've submitted a report to our cities. They live 1 to 2 hours away in the suburbs, cybercrime office. I'm needed for the investigation. I explain that I wasn't the one who found the video, but I'll try to get Mike involved. They apologize for Jamie, but I tell them she's the one who needed to apologize and that they shouldn't baby her. They agree but beg me not to argue right now since Jamie may relapse. They explain her psychologist assessment. Spontaneous nervous breakdown, no history of mental illness, concluded to be caused by accumulated stress from her studies and acute stress reaction from our argument. She needs rest in a safe environment. Psych almost called the police on me, but they convinced them not to, and with no physical trauma observed, gave up. The discussion devolved to apologizing, tears from Alice especially, and other noise. But they did want to take charge of everything. The investigation, Jamie's well-being, her education and finances, etc. I was kinda washed off of everything. 8 days later, Alice calls me in the middle of the night begging me to see Jamie. Depressive episode, kitchen knife, locked in the bathroom yelling for me. Worst hour of my life. I'm pretty sure I almost died twice on the road and glad that my country isn't developed enough for highway cameras. I meet Alice and Jackie outside the house waiting for me. Jamie has mostly calmed and Julio's with her in her room. They beg me to go see her, and with how bad the situation looked, I rushed to Jamie. She's a fucking wreck, looked like her blood's been drained and hasn't slept for a while. She starts crying the moment she sees me and reaches out her arms. Whatever anger, exhaustion, and anxiety melted away and I embrace her. She kept apologizing and begging for me to stay. I shush her and hold her tight. She eventually goes to sleep and I take a moment to think about what's happening. I genuinely felt heartbroken seeing her like this. This is not how I thought we will be together in the future, much less this Christmas. I am losing my best friend and would have been partner for life. This was the person who helped me through my depression when even my own family dismissed it. She's even the one who made me make journals to help process what I go through. It's actually ironic how she's the reason how good I can write down details on her affair and how bad it affected me. She's not evil. She's a beautiful, patient, and overall wonderful human being. Thinking of all the stuff we've been through, what we've done for each other, if I were to list all of it would probably reach twice the word count for my post. I love her and was prepared to be with her for life and face everything that comes with it. And she destroyed that. I wake up before her and go to the kitchen for coffee. Jackie is there and explains that she's had episodes twice before and this was the worst yet. All of us except Jamie talk on what to do. Alice is in chemo for breast cancer, Julio runs a business 20 minutes away, Jackie's workplace is already hounding her, and Jamie needs help. The situation is fucked and everyone is exhausted. Jamie needs therapy. I implied mental institution and that almost got my head torn off, but no one can look after her 24/7. They ask me to reschedule the inevitable and try to help her. There were definitely some emotional manipulation, but they are desperate. Due to my obvious lingering attachment and my own respect and love for these people, I agree. This is where I fucked up. I go home, talk to Mike about the investigation, he agrees to talk to the police. I call Alex and explain all the BS happening. He warns me that this didn't sound like the right call, a mental institution was probably the best, and I'm just gonna get hurt. Regardless, he'll still stand by my decision and to call when I need him. I love this guy. I've already scheduled a consultation for therapy and Jamie will have a different one scheduled 3 days from now in my city. I just want to take a really long nap and get away from all this. Update, I found my girlfriend of 8 years, cheating intercourse tape. Her family, close friends, and cybercrime police are involved. So, it's been over 2 weeks since my last post where I got proceeded to get my ass handed to me. I'm not complaining, you guys were right. I do need to leave and start living my own life. A lot has actually happened since then, but thankfully most of it's boring, sad and disappointing. Got myself a behavioral therapist, which something I should have done a long time ago. I have different problems unrelated to this that Jamie did help me through most, but a professional really does make a difference. Gave me a lot of hard questions, important questions, that forced me to put my life into perspective. It was liberating experience. Finally talked with my own family about this. For context, I'm not very close with my actual parents, particularly with my father. Broken home and all that. I consider my aunts, my father's 4 sisters, who stepped up to take care of me as a child, to be my real parents. So if I mention family, I really mean just my 4 moms. Turns out, they were more involved than I thought. Jamie talks to them, she loved talking with them about me and our relationship, they got closer for it too. She asked so many questions about me, what I liked, food, hobbies, what my childhood was like. She'd ask advice from them about so many things. What to do when I get pissy, how to get my ass moving, all that cute stuff. Around a year ago, when they noticed that I started acting positively when they played around with the topic of marriage, Jamie and my family started to get ready. 3 of them have families with at least 3 children each, so to help ease the accommodation, they saved money to pay for themselves, and anything extra goes to the wedding, to us and whatever after. They even talked about engagement rings. Calling them disappointed is an understatement. With the bullshit happening now, they opted to give me half of what they saved for the marriage to help me out, and also offer to take me back again, which truly is a massive help. My biggest problem this whole time was a source of income. I didn't have a job lined up out of my city, still don't, and my savings are meager. With all that settled, I gave my employer my resignation letter, cancelled my lease and have by the end of the month to sort my affairs. I'm leaving for good. As for Jamie, I've gradually stepped out of whatever's been happening with her and around her, talked with her family or more like told them that I'm leaving. Gave them info about psychiatric hold and made them handle her appointments with her psychologist and whatever else she needs. It was a sad affair, really. I know it doesn't seem like it, especially with Alice and Julio making me stay and take care of Jamie, but this is a first time for all of us. They raised 4 great kids, their relationships are great and they even extended that to me even when they barely knew me. Jamie fucked up the worst and this isn't something anyone can expect anyone else to handle with ease and grace. I mourn my loss of a potential family that I could have been proud to be with. For the POS who filmed her, I still haven't confronted her about it, but Mike and Jackie shared what she told the police and how the investigation's going. It was a Korean national she says she met on social media for a fling. She said they only fucked once but that was immediately shot down. The video showed 2 different, distinct rooms and got pressured to admit where it was in case they can get anything like CCTV, social media posts, log books, witnesses etc., and that they did. 1 hotel still had recordings that day, 2 hotels with log books containing names and dates, and their DMs. She didn't mention rape, blackmail, or drugs in play, only mild intoxication which was all obvious in the video apparently. Everything but the recording was consented. There were some possible routes to take in terms of damages but when a lawyer got contacted, it was pretty much dead on the water. POS being a Korean national currently in Korea muddied the legal waters. They can do nothing else other than contact relevant Korean authorities, gather as much evidence and wait. But the lawyer wasn't confident anything might stick. As far as they know, they have no evidence that it was even POS who set up the cameras beyond that POS stayed the night before and the cameras are obviously long since gone. There are far too many angles POS can play to delay or even win any lawsuit that reaches him. It will be most likely expensive, drawn out, and with very little chance of winning. So they gave up that route. POS is getting off scotch-free. Why'd Jamie do it? I don't know. Before, I didn't have the guts to ask her. Now it doesn't really matter. I'm not as exhausted as before and my mind's been clearer. I'm leaving for good regardless of why she did it. I can just walk straight out with no explanation or maybe leave a letter for her, thanking her for the wonderful time we spent together, the love we shared, and a final goodbye. I'm romantic like that. Still, I've decided to handle this with as much grace as I can. I'll help when worst comes to worst, don't lay blame on myself or her family, and not even mount pressure on Jamie for ruining everything. Not for Jamie but for my own twisted sense of self-gratification that I did all what can be expected and more. I will leave with my back straight and nose held high. Funnily enough, this did eventually show me how lucky I am despite everything. Yes, the love of my life cheated on me and had the audacity to throw a tantrum over it, my future's looking a little bleak, I found out so much repressed anxiety and anger from my shitty childhood. But I'm still doing pretty great. I have family that loves me, friends that have my back, and despite her betrayal, brought the best out of me with wonderful memories along with it. I have nothing to be ashamed of, and can say with pride that I was a wonderful boyfriend. Hopefully this will be my last update, if not, the next to be far more boring and less mouthy. Stories number 14. Neighbor's 40-year-old son threatens to beat me up because I can't run in my wheelchair. All started when he drove behind my roommate's car on the street and started blaring his horn for 15 minutes while yelling outside how she needs to move her car because he wanted to park in front of our house instead of his. Obviously since she did nothing wrong she wasn't moving her car, so he finally parks in his usual spot on the street. 15 minutes later he comes out onto our property and starts screaming about how we don't understand property lines. It's a residential street in TX, property lines don't affect street parking anyways, so I'm not sure why he thought that helped his argument. So after 15 minutes of yelling he decides he's not getting the job done himself, so he calls the cops. They come and explain why he's being stupid and ask him to stay inside and cool off since there's others neighbors watching at this point. Cops finally leave and say they'll make a report in case of future incidents. About 30 more minutes go by before loudly from his backyard surround system he starts blasting the censored CeeLo Greens, foo, obviously those of us who heard started losing it laughing. He didn't like our amusement and came back out to confront my roommate face to face. She stood her ground while he tried degrading her, then he noticed me in my wheelchair. Immediately he starts going on about how I can't stand up to fight him, and how he'll have fun beating the shit out of me while I can't run. Well, the other neighbors thought that was rude and called the cops on him. They showed up quicker the second time, and immediately the man-child ran inside and called his parents to come home. Cops talked to the parents and asked them to keep an eye on him as he seems unstable, but hasn't done anything yet for them to intervene. Cops talked to some of the other neighbors for the full picture. They told us later they were asked to keep footage from cameras as this guy was still shouting about getting revenge, while the cops talked to his parents. This all happened last night around 10 o'clock, and since then he's just been peeking through his window and watching me while I smoke outside. He moved his car back in front of our house, which I guess is his way of standing his ground. Cops are still coming through the neighborhood every few hours, and our other neighbors have checked up on us a couple times. The greatest part of this experience has been learning how much every other neighbor hates these people. Apparently our backyard isn't the only one they dump their trash in. Contractors have complained about them being rude and getting in the way of work, and they refuse to get a mailbox, so we've been delivering their mail kindly for them. I guess that's stopping now. TLDR, man-child called cops, didn't go his way, so he threatens person in a wheelchair. Cops get called on him and he calls his geriatric parents to save him. Stories number 15. Aita for refusing to make my sister's autistic son leave my wedding, even though my fiance's parents threatened to walk out. This happened a few weeks ago, and things are still tense. I, 28F, recently got married to my now husband, 30M. We planned a medium-sized wedding, about 80 guests, fairly traditional, nothing super fancy. My sister, 32F, has a 9-year-old son, Jamie, who is on the spectrum. He's verbal but gets overstimulated easily and sometimes makes sudden loud noises or flaps his hands. We all love Jamie, and my sister takes amazing care of him. I've always included him in events and made sure he felt welcome. Fast forward to the wedding, Jamie was seated at the family table, and my sister had headphones, fidgets, a sensory kit, all that. During the ceremony, he made a couple of noises, nothing major, just excited squeals. It honestly didn't bother me. I barely noticed. But apparently, my fiancé's parents were livid and called it disruptive. They pulled him aside after and asked him why a child like that was even invited to a formal event. They told him either Jamie had to leave before the reception or they would. My husband told me about it during cocktail hour. I was furious. I said, if they leave, they leave. I'm not kicking out my nephew because they can't handle a child being happy at a wedding. He backed me up, and Jamie stayed. They ended up walking out right before dinner. No speech, no toast, nothing. His dad called me a self-centered brat later and said I ruined their son's big day for a performative inclusion stunt. My sister cried when she found out. Jamie didn't fully understand, but he asked why some people don't like my happy sounds. Since then, there's been a rift. My in-laws think I disrespected them. Some of my own family members said I could have just asked my sister to bring Jamie to the ceremony but not the reception, and compromised to keep the peace. But to me, that felt like telling my sister her son is a problem we need to hide. So Aita for choosing my nephew over keeping the in-laws happy at my wedding. Stories number 16. Aita for not buying a house for my sister to live in. So I, 24M, am now in the position where I can buy a house for the first time. I live in the UK and I am single, so I already understand that this is quite rare. The way I did this is earn a good wage from my job I've had for the past year, and I've been good at saving since I started at 16. Anyways, I am in the position to buy a 3 to 4 bedroom house, looking at a few, plenty of room and kind of future-proof for if I get a wife and have kids in the future. I still live with my parents, and over dinner I said that I'm looking to buy a house soon. My dad was very happy and proud. My mum was, however, very unenthusiastic about the idea. She told me that the right thing to do would be to buy the house and rent it to my sister as she needs it more. For context, my sister, 30F, has one child with her ex-husband and has recently had another child with her current boyfriend. She is struggling to make ends meet and she is renting now. It is unsuitable in the current house. While I am empathetic to my sister's situation, it is not my responsibility for housing her. I even suggested that me moving out into my own house is better as it frees up space in my parents' house for my sister and her family if it came to that. My sister has also made very questionable financial decisions over years. While I understand it's hard, a good part of the hardship she is facing could be avoided. And I would like to preface that she is nowhere near being homeless. What do you think? Is my stance wrong or not moral? Am I justified? Update. So I spoke to my sister today briefly. I mentioned this and she said that even if it was offered she wouldn't accept and agreed it was not my responsibility. She said that she is struggling right now because she is still clearing up some debt and her boyfriend is still only working part-time and studying the rest. She thinks it will be money tight for the next few years and then should be fine after that. So this entire discussion was just for my mum. My sister didn't even think about the idea, and actually seems to have her own plan. Stories number 17. She kept hiding supplies to avoid helping, so I stopped covering for her. I used to work at a small dental office where we all pitched in for basic tasks like restocking gloves, sterilizing tools, and wiping down chairs between patients. We had a solid team, except for one assistant, Tina, who always acted like the simplest parts of the job were beneath her. Every time it was her turn to restock or clean, suddenly the supplies were out or someone else must have forgotten to order more. The thing is, I handled inventory, and I knew we had everything in stock. One day, I got curious and started checking the cabinets after Tina's shift. Sure enough, I found gloves, wipes, and even the face shields she claimed were missing, all shoved behind the old X-ray aprons in a bottom drawer. I didn't say anything at first, I just let her fail. The next time she left the room during a rush and told me we were out of sterile gauze, I said, "Oh, that's weird. I saw a full box earlier. Maybe check the bottom cabinet again." She turned red and mumbled something about rechecking. Eventually, our lead hygienist noticed Tina was falling behind on cleaning between patients. I stayed quiet, but when she asked if I'd seen any supply issues, I just said, "Nope. Everything's fully stocked when I check." Tina ended up getting a formal warning for not meeting turnaround times and not following proper sanitizing procedures. A couple of months later, she quit without notice. I didn't feel bad she created the mess, I just stopped pretending I didn't see it. Stories number 18. Aita for asking my coworker if he's raising his kid like a retirement plan after he, and others, mocked me for being single. I, 24F, have been working at my company for over 2 years now. I've had a few flings but never got into anything serious. I just know deep down that commitment, marriage, and especially kids aren't for me. Like, the idea of someone being in my space 24/7 and kids needing constant attention. Exhausting. But I don't judge anyone who wants that. Live your life. I just know what I want, and I've told my close work friends that a few times. Problem is, in our culture, being single after 30 is seen as a red flag. People think if you're not married or popping out babies, something's wrong with you. So anytime I say I don't want to get married or have kids, I get hit with, "You'll change your mind," or "You'll regret it." Anyway, we were chilling near our desks when one coworker, dating a guy way younger and insecure AF, said girls like me have too high standards and would end up alone. She even pointed to the single ladies, mid to late 20s, like it was a cautionary tale. I just laughed and said being single actually sounds peaceful. Then one of the dads chimed in like, "Okay, but who's gonna take care of you when you're old?" I said, having kids doesn't guarantee that. There are cases where even a dozen kids can't and won't take care of their parents. He got smug and went, "Still better to be sure. You better start now." So I replied, "Wait, are you raising your kid like a retirement plan? Like investing in an asset and expecting a return on the investment?" I said kids don't owe their parents anything just because they were born. You chose to have them, not the other way around. Taking care of you should be love, not obligation. And yeah, dead silence after that. Nervous chuckles. You know the vibe. I just laughed and went back to my seat. I would have let it slide, but this isn't the first time they've made comments like that, like I'm living life wrong for not wanting what they want. Later, I remembered what one of my friends said about most people in my workplace and in my country being conservative and not ready for my mindset. Sometimes I get too radical and I know that as well, so now I'm wondering. Aita for being that blunt? Should I have stayed quiet and listened to their life advice? TLDR, coworkers kept judging me for being single and child-free. One asked who'll take care of me when I'm old. I clapped back and asked if he's raising his kid like a future caretaker/ATM. Room went silent. Stories number 19. I refused to date my friend because of his toxic family. Note, no real names are used for obvious reasons. I, 30F, have this close friend from college who I will call Marlon, 31M. We went to college together, graduated together, and we still hang out on our lunch breaks as our office buildings are just a 5-minute walk away from each other. I have a federal government job and he works for an investment firm. Back in October last year, I allowed Marlon to move in with me after his girlfriend Paige, 29F, broke up with him and kicked him out of her home. Paige is a Jewish, openly bisexual, liberal, tattoo artist who owns her own tattoo parlor, with her own body being beautifully covered in tattoos and jet black hair. Unlike Marlon though, asserts herself, is able to stand up for herself and is argumentative at times. A little backstory and why they broke up. Marlon comes from a traditional, evangelical family from Mississippi. His family moved here to the Bay Area sometime in 2020, during the pandemic so they can be closer to him, or more specifically so they can get him to better support them. Marlon's mom is on welfare, her dad is on Social Security and Marlon's brother Ryan, 35M, is unemployed, relying on Marlon and his parents to support them. Marlon's parents and brother live in a 2-bedroom apartment while Marlon himself, as mentioned, now lives in my house but previously lived with Paige. Marlon's family is toxic, treating him with little to no respect, constantly criticizing him, while coddling Ryan. They find reasons to gang up on him, criticize him and ridicule him despite the fact Marlon is the only one in their family to have ever gone to college, pays for their rent, pays their groceries, their internet, their shopping expenses, etc. During their relationship, Paige and Marlon had this rule that they won't get involved in each other's family matters, provided it does not directly affect them. Paige has repeatedly expressed her concerns to Marlon about his family and how his family treats him, but she opted not to push the matter any further because of their agreement and the fact at the time, as Marlon's family weren't directly interfering with Paige's life. Paige has also generally tried to avoid contact or communication with Marlon's family as she's sickened with the way they treat him. When she tries to stand up for Marlon, Marlon himself shushes her and tells her off for raising her voice to his parents. Additionally, in one of the few times Paige has actually met his family, she got into a fight with Marlon's parents due to Marlon's mom making snide remarks about her tattoos and demanding that Paige take down the Pride flag, Ukraine flag and BLM banner from her parlor. Marlon's parents also don't like the fact Paige owns her own home after inheriting it from her grandfather. This is because his parents believe it's emasculating that a woman should own her own home and business. Separately, Marlon also previously once told me how his parents don't like the fact that Paige is Jewish, as they will consider accepting her if she removes all her tattoos, again which covers a lot of her body, stops being Jewish and live the same traditional evangelical life they raised Marlon and Ryan with. They basically wanted Paige to convert and become a tradwife. Marlon did a sucky job at standing up for his ex as Marlon tried to remedy this by sheepishly asking her to try covering up her tattoos and taking down the flags from her parlor as a compromise to keep the peace. She refused to do so and threatened to break up with him if he kept pushing it. Note that, Marlon himself is a genuinely kind, intelligent and supportive person who was there for me during a difficult time in my freshman year. When his family aren't around, he does thrive as very much his own person, but since his family moved here to California and get back in his life, it's like they just sucked the life out of him. Me, Paige and his other friends have also talked to him about this, urging him to cut them off, but he's just so desperate for their approval and validation that he won't listen. He just keeps saying things like, maybe if I try a little harder, or, they're going to change soon. After a while, it just becomes pointless to even ask. Things changed when Marlon's family started demanding more money from him due to his mom's credit card debt and shopping habits, as well as the fact Marlon's parents used a lot of the allowance Marlon gave them to travel across the country going to campaign rallies during last year's presidential election. When Marlon wasn't able to give his parents any more money, they then went after Paige, trying to contact her and demanding that as their son's girlfriend, she had to pitch in to support them. Paige just tried to ignore them at first, but things reached a breaking point when Marlon's mother and his brother Ryan came into her parlor, demanding she give them money. According to Paige, they believe that as she's his girlfriend, whatever is hers is also Marlon's and whatever is Marlon's is theirs, with Marlon's mom screaming that they need money to pay her debts. Paige then called 911 when Ryan jumped the counter and started trying to pry open the cash register. However, as she was on the phone, Marlon's mom punched Paige in the face and started trying to grab the phone from her. Apparently, the barber, who's friends with Paige, across the street saw the commotion that was happening in Paige's parlor, so the barber and two of his patrons came over to try and help her. The barber and his friends managed to subdue Ryan, and Paige finished her call with 911, as Marlon's mom started screaming at them, calling the barber, who was pinning down Ryan, the N-word and calling Paige a Jewish crack wh. Marlon's mom and brother were arrested, with Paige telling officers that she was pressing charges as Ryan did just try to rob her place, and Marlon's mom beating Paige did cause her to have a bleeding lip and mild concussion. As for my personal relationship with Paige, we're just acquaintances. We met a couple of times at social events including Marlon and do have each other on both Facebook and Instagram, but that's about it. After Marlon talked about their breakup, just out of curiosity, I did message Paige and ask for her side of the story as well. She asked me to meet up with her at this tea house in Union Square and told me what happened, basically filling in what Marlon left out. Paige went on to tell me that after she pressed charges and moved to file a restraining order against Marlon's family, Marlon practically started begging her to withdraw her statement, withdraw the restraining order, tell the police she made it all up, despite the fact there was security camera footage which she gave to police, and to just make peace as he didn't want to lose his family. Paige said that Marlon didn't even ask if she was okay or apologize for their actions. Because of this, Paige broke up with Marlon right then and there. Marlon did beg her to not leave him, but Paige reminded him that he consistently kept picking his family over her, he's repeatedly failed to support her, and that she cannot safely be in his life if his family are in his. I thanked Paige for sharing her side of the story and apologized for his actions, to which she assured me none of this was my fault. However, before Paige left, as I did take in Marlon to let him move in with me, Paige then took my hand and warned me to keep my distance from his family and warned me of Marlon's mom's weird obsession with having grandchildren. When I got back to my house, as by this time, he was already staying with me, I admittedly snapped at Marlon, demanding that he apologize to Paige for not supporting her and to stop trying to beg her to get back with him, which he eventually did a couple months later. I then talked to Marlon about trying to at least set boundaries with his family, as he won't cut them off completely, pointed out that he earns more than I do but yet, he can barely support himself as he's basically supporting 3 adults and paying for their debts, their rent, their groceries, and legal bills on his income alone, and he's lost not only a couple of other friendships but even his girlfriend of 3 years, Paige, because of his relationship with them. He seems to have gotten it but is still having trouble setting boundaries, and yes, he's still paying their debts and bills. In case you were wondering, I live in my childhood/family 4-bedroom home which they bought in the 90s. My parents moved up to Seattle 2 years ago, allowing me to live here provided I'm able to take care of the house expenses myself. Fast forward to today, it's been 7 months since Paige broke up with Marlon. He is still living with me, we're still friends, but despite that I'm also requiring him to contribute to household expenses like groceries and contributing to the water bill as he is living with me. A couple nights ago, I was in my living room watching Netflix when Marlon asked me if I'd be willing to go out with him on like an actual date. Back in college, we did on a few occasions talk about the possibility of dating, as in cases where his family is out of the picture. He is a genuinely nice guy and we do spend a lot of time with each other, but nothing came out of it at the time. I then paused the movie to have a serious talk with Marlon, bluntly telling him that if it were just him, by himself, I would be open to it, as when his family is out of the picture, he is a genuinely nice guy and reliably supportive. However, I did point out how almost all of his salary goes to supporting 3 unemployed adults, his family, and I reminded him what happened with Paige. That said, I asked that if, big if, we did get together, get married and have kids, how would he support our family while supporting his parents and brother? Would he set boundaries with his parents? Because, previously, when Paige and I did urge him to set boundaries with his family, he failed. And lastly, I asked him if we were together, would his parents expect me to support them as well? Additionally, I'm mixed race, as my mom is white and my dad is Indian, and Catholic, albeit not very religious. That said, me being non-white may be a problem for them and I don't share a lot of their views. Marlon just said things along the lines of he would do his best to try to balance things, and he'd only expect me to occasionally help out his parents as a compromise to keep the peace. He also tried reassuring me by saying they wouldn't mind me not being white provided I agree to live by their rules, at least when they're around. Taking a deep breath, I sighed and I told him that unless he fully goes no contact with his parents, not only won't I date him but that any future relationship he has will be doomed to fail due to how overly involved they are in his life. I then got up and went to bed, with the 2 of us not talking about his parents or the 2 of us dating since that night. Additional information and mini update. For clarification, no, I never intended to realistically plan to date or enter a romantic relationship with Marlon. He and I did talk about it yesterday, and we agreed that while he is attracted to me, he also doesn't think it'd be a good idea for us to date, mainly because of my skin color and that being a problem for his mom. Apparently, he briefly mentioned the possibility of us date to his mom, who immediately shot it down because I was too brown for her. One of the very few times that racism actually worked in my favor, I guess. Also, Marlon is still missing Paige and he told me that he's been so thinking about trying to get back with her. I reminded him that not only should he leave Paige alone but that given his situation, unless he gets serious help first and cuts his parents out of his life, getting into another relationship would be the worst possible thing he can do. Lastly, yes, Marlon and I do have a written month-to-month lease. He does pay me rent monthly, albeit a small amount compared to other properties in the market, and if I were to cancel its renewal, I'd need to give him 30 days notice. I, along with a couple of our other mutual friends, have been urging him to find his own place and try to at least do things for himself, hoping that it'd at least start giving him the confidence to start breaking away from his parents. But this is a follow-up to my original story from last month and I'm not sure where to begin because of how messed up this has all been. I should probably rewind and explain how things got to this point. So, after Marlon's ex Paige, 29F, broke up with him back in October last year, Paige and I have actually started talking, we have become friends and have started going to the gym together. Paige has also recently started dating a guy from our gym who I'll call Virgil, 33M. Turns out Paige and Virgil happen to have gone to the same high school, although a few years apart. In the 7 months since Paige broke up with Marlon, 31M, he's been slaving away trying to support his freeloading family. He's basically been a wreck without Paige, coupled with the constant belittling he gets from his family, specifically about him not earning enough. He also went on to say that he missed Paige supporting and comforting him, which she'd usually do every time he had a negative interaction with his family. Despite me and our friend group trying to encourage Marlon to just move on from her, Marlon has kept wanting to talk to Paige to try and get her to come back to him. Throughout the 7 months they've been separated, Marlon has tried coming over to Paige's home and parlor to try and talk to her, but she kept shutting him down and Marlon stopped doing that, at least up until recently, after Paige threatened to call the police and get a restraining order against him if he showed up to her place one more time unsolicited. Marlon has also complained about not being able to support his family's increasing financial demands, debts, medical bills, and shopping habits. Additionally, Marlon's mom has been badgering him and his brother about her wanting to have grandkids. That said, as some of you have commented in my previous post, Yeah, I'm pretty convinced that one reason Marlon wants Paige back, or to a lesser extent, be with me, is because he needs someone to help him support his family as well as to serve a buffer between him and them, as well as being like an emotional support person for Marlon himself. In late March, Marlon found out that Paige had a new boyfriend as she's dating Virgil, causing Marlon to panic. He went on a rant saying that he doesn't want to lose Paige, and I reminded him that she already broke up with him, so he and her are done now. Despite this, Marlon did try texting, calling and messaging Paige repeatedly, even creating new accounts to do so, as he just wants to talk to her and that he believes they can still talk things out, but I told him to stop trying to contact her. I even showed him a video message Paige sent me to show to him in which she explicitly told him to stop contacting her. Fast forward to Saturday, May 17th, I took time off work and was away from home as I went on a date with this guy I met online who I'll call Jack, 55M, as he took me to his cabin up in the mountains for a week. While there, I received a notification that someone was at the door. It was Marlon's parents demanding to speak to Marlon. I'm guessing Marlon was away from home at the time because he clearly didn't answer, so I told them through the doorbell camera that Marlon was probably at work or something and asked what they wanted. Marlon's parents basically went on this rant about how disappointed they are in their son for not earning enough to provide for them, as well as them needing more money to pay for Marlon's mom's legal bills, gambling addiction and medical bills. Marlon's dad also mentioned that he needs Marlon to sign onto and pay for a Denali pickup truck he wants to buy, as the truck Marlon's dad bought himself just got repoed. Marlon's mom then asked if I was dating or sleeping with Marlon. I told her no, that there is nothing is happening between me and him, plus I also mentioned to her that Marlon told me that she didn't want me dating her son because I am too brown for her liking, so that shouldn't be a problem anyway. Marlon's mom then responded, saying that at this point, due to her age and ailing health, she just wants to have grandkids, even if they are mixed race. I caught my breath and just reminded her that I'm just Marlon's friend and legally speaking, I am his landlord, so, that's it. She then said that, if Marlon and I do have sex, and if I got pregnant, she wants to name our baby, then they left. I was speechless but also felt weirdly sick from that. On Friday afternoon, as Jack and I were leaving, and I turned it back on, had to conserve battery as I didn't bring a charger and wanted to avoid distractions, to find multiple missed calls and messages from Marlon and Tiffany, 30F. Jack dropped me off home, and as I got inside my house, I found Marlon's room completely thrashed, as well as the living room to a lesser extent, and him just sitting there on the couch, looking more miserable than before. I asked what happened, and basically his parents came back over to my place. Marlon opened the door for them and they basically berated him again for not earning enough money to pay for their medical bills, debts, etc. This basically ended in Marlon agreeing to take out a loan to help finance his family, as well as Marlon and his dad going to a dealership for him to sign on to a truck Marlon's dad wanted. When Marlon got home, got so frustrated that he started smashing up the rooms. I then called back Tiffany, who's a close friend of me, Paige and Marlon, and asked her to come over. Tiffany and I then talked to Marlon, comforting him but also urging him again to cut off his parents. Tiffany pointed out that before Marlon's parents came here, Marlon was happy, confident, had a happy and stable relationship with Paige, was doing well at his job, but now he's just a mess. I then also told Marlon about the doorbell conversation I had with his mom, and how his parents are now indirectly starting to affect me as well. Marlon apologized and said he'll try to take care of it. Tiffany, who does come from a wealthy family, did offer to pay for Marlon to go to therapy, but Marlon refused, with him saying that he probably just needs to try something else to win over his parents, with Marlon still justifying their action by saying they're misunderstood. I was going to point out that his family seems to have no sense of boundaries, lack basic human decency and have no self-control, but at this point, trying to tell him this right now seemed pointless. Tiffany and I then cleaned up the mess in the living room, while Marlon cleaned up his room. Later last night, I spoke with Tiffany and Paige on what we can do. Paige recommended something about trying to reach out to his other relatives who may be willing to support him. I'm leaning towards evicting Marlon from my family home, but I don't want to do that just yet until we could find somewhere for him to stay. I'll post an update if anything significant changes. This is not much of an update, per se, as the only real new developments from what Ashima mentioned in her last post are that she has given Marlon 30 days to move out. Marlon's mom Sylvia, F68, got him fired from his job, and Marlon has been increasingly desperate in trying to keep his life together. This is really just more for context to what Ashima has already mentioned and for me to tell my side of the story, so if you haven't already done so, please read her posts before reading mine. Also, as I feel Ashima in her previous posts already did a pretty good job in covering the situation we're in, I'm going to try and avoid repeating parts she's already mentioned. I am originally from New Jersey but moved here to California in late October 2021 after my grandpa passed away from COVID the year before, thus inheriting his house here in Oakland. I didn't really know anyone here, but about a week after moving into my new home, is when I met Marlon. We met at a grocery store that I would frequent and we got to chatting after I commented that I liked the Linkin Park shirt he was wearing. He had scruffy hair, stuttered a bit, and to me he came across as this quirky and kinda awkward type of guy, but I personally found it cute, so after running into him and chatting with him a few times, I took out a Sharpie and wrote my number on his arm, telling him to call or text me if he ever wants to chat or meet up outside of Safeway. For about 2 weeks, Marlon and I would text and call back and forth almost every day. With that in mind, on the second week, while we were talking on the phone, with me talking about how I grew up watching Star Trek and I just asking him if he wanted to go out with me to the Chabot Space and Science Center, which will reopen on November later that week, to which Marlon eagerly said yes to. We went out on our first date on Saturday, November 13th to the Chabot Space and Science Center. I liked that he was smart, engaging, quirky and just a delight to be around at the time. After that, since he took a cab there, for dinner, I then drove us to this Chinese restaurant near the tattoo shop I worked at. I would later buy it off of the previous owner when he retired, and told him of how on Christmas Eve, while Christian families may serve up ham in their homes, it was a thing for my family and other Jewish families to go out to Chinese restaurants instead. Our first date went really well, so we kept seeing each other. In the 3 years we were dating, I told him everything about myself, my family and my family history. I told him of how I'm of Czech Jewish descent on my dad's side and Sephardic Jewish on my mom's side. I told him of how my paternal great-grandpa was the only member of his family to have survived Auschwitz and how the trauma of him losing his entire family caused him to instill in us the value of family and staying close to each other. I told him of how my mom was originally from Israel but emigrated here to the States in the 1970s to be closer to her family here. P.S. No, I'm not an Israeli citizen as my mom didn't register my birth with the embassy, and no, I'm not able to choose what country my mom is from. I also opened up to Marlon about how years ago, I was kidnapped, read and tortured, causing me to develop PTSD and develop a Dr*G addiction, which took me years and treatment to deal with. This was something only very few people know about. My own family doesn't know the full extent of what happened, but I told Marlon everything, all of which was in confidence. I made Marlon promise not to share what I told him to anybody. Marlon, however, was generally very reluctant to talk about his family, which I respected, but eventually he did talk about how he grew up in a very conservative and strict household, how his family scoffs at the college-educated and how he is the primary provider for his family, with Marlon saying that he does what he can to earn his parents' love. I told him that love is not earned but rather it's unconditional and based on mutual support for each other. His immediate family were very toxic. His brother, Ryan, M35, bullies Marlon and his parents encouraged it. They mocked Marlon for going to college, but now his parents are using him as a meal ticket as well as intending for him to be a long-term financial support system for Ryan. Marlon, however, does have an aunt and uncle who I will call Grace, the older sister of Sylvia, and Todd, who were actually genuinely nice people and have shown him love and compassion. He even recalled of how his Aunt Grace, F72, would oftentimes defend Marlon whenever Sylvia started berating him during family gatherings. When Grace did this, Sylvia would often back down according to Marlon, only for Sylvia to take out her anger on Marlon later. Anyway, in the 3 years we've been dating, Marlon and I have traveled back to the East Coast 3 times to spend the holidays with my family. This was for Passover in 2022 and 2024, as well as Hanukkah in 2023. To Marlon, the way my family and I interacted with each other was like a culture shock. My sister Noah, F26, and I could have disagreements, talk back to and even mildly argue with our parents over certain things and it not being that big of an issue, how we could just candidly talk about things with each other, our parents respecting our personal space and privacy, etc. Additionally, my parents made it a point to make Marlon feel welcome. My parents were super supportive of us, and for Hanukkah, my mom even got Marlon a present. All of this, my family being able to talk candidly and even have disagreements with each other in a healthy manner, as debates are something my dad has generally encouraged as it promoted critical thinking skills. Additionally, our parents being supportive of my sister and I, our parents not trying to guilt trip us or play favoritism, just felt strange and foreign to him. For Marlon, he described my family dynamic as being the type of family dynamic he'd only see on TV or in movies. He always assumed it was just fake or for show, as based on his experiences, especially with his own family and to a lesser extent, seeing how his extended family interacted with each other, to him dysfunction was normal. Now from reading the comments on Ashima's posts, quite a few of you did comment and ask why I stayed with Marlon for as long as I did. This is the part where I explain that, for the first 2 years of us dating, back when Marlon's parents weren't really all that involved in our relationship, things were actually really good. I enjoyed spending time with Marlon. He was kind, compassionate, great at listening, engaging, a bit weird in a cute kind of way. My relationship with Marlon when it was just the two of us was great. The first time I actually met Marlon's family was on New Year's Eve in 2022. Marlon told me they wanted to spend New Year's in a proper house and they wanted to know if I'd be willing to host them, so I did. Also, as a buffer, I also invited my friends Tiffany, F30, Luna, F29, and my cousin Jacob, M33, as well as his wife and kids who were also visiting at the time. Right off the bat, Marlon's parents were unpleasant people. When I introduced myself, upon them learning that I owned my own home and had my own income, Marlon's parents seemed genuinely offended by that. In fact, quite a few things at my home offended them. They didn't like the fact Jacob's kids were just in the living room watching Glee, which Marlon's mom loudly complained that it was woke trash, which she believes promotes homosexuality. She also didn't like the fact she saw my old Bernie 2016 t-shirt just laying on my couch with Marlon's mom calling Bernie Sanders a woke, Jewish socialist. I playfully responded by saying so am I, as again, I grew up in an environment where I was encouraged to talk back, which Sylvia seemed offended by. During the dinner, Marlon's dad and brother Ryan talked about how Marlon is a disappointment, with Ryan calling Marlon a loser. This caused an awkward silence in the dining room, so I shot back by rhetorically asking Ryan, so, what do you do for a living, and, tell me Ryan, where did you go to college again? This caused Ryan to shut up and stare at me angrily. I doubled down by bluntly pointing out to Ryan and Marlon's dad that Marlon is not only the only one in his family who's been to college, but that he's the only one among them who has a job, at the time, and pointed out that he's basically paying for their everything, so they're not exactly in a position to talk down to him. Sylvia then snapped, incoherently screaming at me, and I pissed her off even more by just laughing at her, which I'm guessing pissed her off even more. After a little more back and forth, Marlon's family then stormed off even before we could get to the New Year's countdown. After the party, when everyone else went home, Marlon essentially told me off for talking back to and arguing with his parents like that. Sometime after they left, while the rest of us were in the living room celebrating New Year's, Marlon actually stepped away from the party to take a phone call from his mom, who berated him because I stood up for him. I reminded Marlon that I'm his girlfriend, so yes, I did stand up for him and defend him the same way I expect him to defend me if it came down to it. We got into an argument because of that and we ended up sleeping in separate rooms. He later apologized for telling me off, saying that he did appreciate as nobody but his Aunt Grace has ever done that for him, but he also went on to say that his mom was wanting me to apologize to them, which I refused. Admittedly, this was a massive red flag I ignored. This New Year's Eve dinner did cause this lingering issue in the back of my head, which admittedly, I should have addressed more firmly, and that was the fact most of Marlon's income was going towards supporting his parents and older brother. 3 adults who were ridiculously ungrateful and entitled, yet dependent on Marlon. They would mock and ridicule Marlon while making demands of him, and honestly it pained me to see this. We did talk about it for a while, but I agreed to not interfere or weigh in on his family matters so long as their behavior does not affect me or our relationship. I did however also suggest that he try to at least gradually reduce his support for them. I did however try to at least get him to question and sow doubt in his decision to support his family by asking him things like, has your parents ever thanked you? What do you gain from spending time with them? Do they make you happy? And, if we do eventually get married and have kids, do you really think you'd still be able to support them as well as us? Marlon can never really give a straight answer to any of these questions. He kept trying to shut these questions out of his mind, and he'd often use the justification, because they're family, as his reason to keep supporting his parents and brother. After a while, he also asked me to stop asking him these kinds of questions, so I did. Things started to go downhill at around July 2023 when Marlon's family started becoming more involved in Marlon's lives, with Sylvia trying to micromanage his life and have been pressuring him to either get a higher paying job or to get a raise. This has resulted in Marlon having near daily phone conversations with his parents, with him pretty much flinching every time the phone rings, Marlon being told to come over to their apartment so that they could berate him again, and a few times even come over to my house to talk down to him here. Also, just wanted to point out, after the New Year's Eve event, I was never the one who opened the door for Marlon's family, as on the 2 times since the party that they've come over to my place, it's been Marlon who answered the door and let them in. Admittedly, after the party, I should have just told Marlon that his parents weren't allowed into my home, period. So, in the occasions where they did drive over to my place to talk down to and berate Marlon, or where they do so in a place where I was also present, there would be this pattern in which I would jump to Marlon's defense, talk back to his parents, argue with them only for Marlon to defend them as I was trying to defend him. This resulted in the 3 of them coming at me as well just for trying to defend Marlon. Once his parents left, I'd then get into fights with Marlon over why he's defending them while I'm trying to defend him. He'd say he's trying to keep the peace and keep everyone happy, and how he's just trying to earn their respect. This was also when Marlon told me that his parents didn't like the fact I was Jewish, that I had tattoos on my body, or the fact that I had an LGBTQ flag, Ukraine flag, BLM banner, yellow ribbon banner, etc. in my shop. He then tried to get me to compromise with his parents by trying to tell me to take down the flags and banners in my shop, cover up my tattoos, and at least tell his mom that I'm willing to convert. After that, I angrily told Marlon that I don't want his parents in my house ever again. If they come over again, I will get the cops involved, and I threatened to break up with him, as at this point, I felt he was wanting me to change for his parents' approval. Marlon then tried to backtrack, begged me not to leave him and promising to set boundaries with his parents, which he never did. Again, another failing on my part, as I should have just broken up with him at this point. Throughout the next few months, I'd also find Marlon either crying, talking down to himself, telling himself that he needs to try harder, and just being a mess. In turn, I'd find myself trying to comfort and console Marlon, being there for him, holding him when he's having a panic attack, etc. I do believe in being there to emotionally support and care for the ones you love, which is why I did this, which I don't regret, as I would do that for any of my loved ones or people I care about. However, I understand now it needs to also be reciprocal. Over the next few months, I was basically no contact with Marlon's family, but from out of the blue, Marlon's mom Sylvia started trying to call and message me, making demands that I support them as well. With Sylvia's calls and messages basically conveying that as Marlon's future wife I needed to pitch in and support them as well, let them live in my house, and Sylvia basically stating that as Marlon is the man of the house, I need to obey him, in my ing house, and let him control my finances, but also that he still has an obligation to support them using my money. I tried ignoring her or just being blatantly rude by hanging up on her mid-rant, but when I did this, she then started making more insane demands. Sylvia then started asking if me and Marlon were trying to have kids, how she wants to name any child me and Marlon have, once messaging me to find a girlfriend for Ryan, etc. All of this was stressing me out, so I did also try to bring this up with Marlon, but when I did, he wouldn't take it seriously, or he tried to dismiss it, and on a couple of occasions, he even in a coy manner asked me to just consider it. There was basically no point in talking to Marlon about this at this point, so I just flatly told him to tell his family to stop contacting me. This clearly didn't work though, as finally on October last year, Sylvia and Ryan came to my shop to demand that I financially support them. I told Sylvia that she is not my responsibility, Marlon may want to waste his money on them but I don't, but none of this was getting through to Sylvia, as she just went on and on about her debts, credit cards, etc. While Sylvia was ranting, I turned to see Ryan having climbed over the counter and trying to figure out how to open the cash register. This was all too much for me, so I just pulled out my phone and called 911. While I was on the phone with the operator, I suddenly felt a punch to the side of my face, followed by being pushed down onto some shelves, knocking me over. I was dazed for like 5 seconds before realizing Sylvia was scratching at my face and hands as she was trying to grab my phone. Doug, M53, who is a barber and friend from across the road, then came in along with a couple of his patrons to help me. With one of Doug's patrons pulling Sylvia off of me while Doug pinned down Ryan. Another passersby and one of my customers also happened to come in and helped in restraining Sylvia and Ryan. When I finished the 911 call, Sylvia was screaming at Doug and his friends, calling them the N-word, with Marlon's mom calling me a crack W********* E and J********. The police arrived, I showed the security cam footage, they arrested Ryan and Sylvia, and I was taken to hospital after the assault. I did press charges, which is why Ryan is now in jail and Sylvia was forced to pay a fine. Ryan was also charged with assault, as used a wallet chain in his pocket as well as a chair to assault Doug and one of the passersby who came to help. When Marlon got home later that evening, he came in shouting at me for calling the cops, complaining that he now has to pay their legal bills and demanding that I withdraw my statement and say that I made it all up, ignoring the fact that I showed the police the security camera footage, that there were multiple other witnesses, and the fact that Ryan assaulted 2 other people. I had a bleeding lip, scratches on my neck, a concussion and bruising on my face. Also, just wanted to correct a minor detail from Ashima's first story. Marlon only started demanding that I drop the restraining order against his family after I broke up with Marlon. I stared at Marlon in silence for a few seconds and just simply said, "You didn't even ask if I was okay," to which Marlon immediately responded by saying, "Why the hell do I care if?" To which he abruptly stopped and immediately tried to backtrack, so I told him to just stop and to not bother. There was another silence in the room, so I told Marlon, "Your mom called me a J***** and a crack W*******. How does she know about that?" He was silent, so I got up and screamed at him, "How the F*** K does she know that?" To which Marlon admitted that he told his mom of what happened to me as she wanted dirt on me. I then told Marlon that I was done with him, I can't deal with his family, I don't feel safe around his family, he broke my trust, it's killing me to watch Marlon humiliate himself to not only cater to but entertain his family who will never reciprocate his love for them, but more than all that, I can't be with someone who can't be there for me and who I can't trust. I can't be with someone who I can't see a healthy future with. After I said that and started tearing up as I told him that I was breaking up with him because I can't do this and it hurts too much to be with him. Marlon then tried to backtrack again, begging me not to break up with him, with Marlon saying things like, "We can talk about this, and we can make it work if we just talk," but when Marlon said, "I want to keep both my family happy and you so if we," I shouted back at Marlon, "I haven't been happy with you in the last 15 months. Marlon then asked, "Can you just pretend you're happy?" I responded to that by asking him, "Is that what you do with your parents, pretend you're happy with them?" Marlon had no response to that. I then caught my breath and composed myself enough to tell Marlon to pack his S***** and that he has 4 days to get the F***** out of my house, adding that when I come back I don't want to see Marlon or his stuff still in my home. I then went to my bedroom, packed my stuff and my laptop into a backpack and went over to Tiffany's place asking her and her husband if I can stay with her for a couple days as Marlon moved out of my house, to which they graciously agreed. Throughout the night, Marlon did spam me with calls, messages and texts, asking me to just talk about it. I just replied with 2 messages, one by text and one by Facebook, telling him that if he's still in my house by Wednesday, I'm calling the cops and getting a restraining order against him too. On Monday, I received a call from Ashima who told me that she reluctantly agreed to let Marlon move in with her, and we discussed details such as when he's moving out, things he may have in my house, as well as me agreeing to forward any of Marlon's mail or packages directly to her place. It was a short phone call. On Wednesday, I asked Tiffany's husband Christian, M35, if he can drive me over to my place as I didn't want to go back there alone just in case Marlon or his family were there. When we got back to my place, Marlon's car as well as his stuff in my house were gone. Christian also helped me change the locks of my house while he was there. A few days after Marlon moved in with Ashima, she contacted me asking if we could talk. We met up for drinks and I told her most of the situation of what happened. I also warned her to set boundaries with Marlon and to definitely keep his family away from her for her own safety. Also, in case you were wondering, yeah, I'm doing okay now. In the almost 8 months since I broke up with Marlon, he for up until March of this year has tried calling me, messaging me from different accounts, and he even dropped by my house and shop about 4 times wanting to talk. I usually told him to go away or simply ignore him, and after he goes off on what I'm guessing was a rehearsed speech which I kinda tuned out, he'd just leave. Ashima and Tiffany has also promised to help keep Marlon and especially his family away from me, considering that I have a restraining order against his family. On a separate note, I am now dating a guy named Virgil, M33. We went to the same high school together, but he was a few years ahead of me, and we reconnected back in June last year when I found out he moved here to California and went to the same gym as me. He told me he moved here work, so we started meeting, met up for coffee, catching up and me showing him around, but just as friends since I was still with Marlon at the time. We didn't start dating until March this year. I haven't mentioned this to Ashima yet, but my last run-in with Marlon was a couple weeks after Virgil and I started dating. Virgil was driving me back to my place, and as we pulled up into my driveway, I saw Marlon sitting on my front porch. I exited his car and asked Marlon what he was doing at my place. He then told me that the house key I gave him a couple years ago doesn't work anymore. Marlon then tried talking to me, but he was disjointed in what he was trying to tell me, jumping between, "I just want to talk," to, "How could you do this to us," asking for a second chance, and Marlon saying that he could forgive me for seeing another man if I just gave him a second chance. Virgil then told Marlon to back up as Marlon ignored him, and just kept shouting at me things like telling me how his mom still follows me on Instagram, I'm guessing she created another account just to stalk me, but and how his mom doesn't approve of me dating a black guy. Virgil is mixed race as his mom is white, his dad is black, so just I cut off Marlon, telling that I never cared about what his mom thinks. We're not dating anymore and that he has to leave. The whole time, I was also trying to hold Virgil back, staying between Marlon and him as I didn't want them fighting. I also told Virgil just to ignore Marlon and that I'll explain things to him when we get inside. As Virgil and I were entering my house, Marlon then frantically started screaming at me, telling me that I'm still his girlfriend and that I'm hurting our chances of getting back together, etc. Marlon then turned to Virgil and asked him, "Do you know she's a Dr*G and a criminal?" At this, I then turned around, rushed towards Marlon and threw him against the column as Marlon tried explaining that he just said that to get my attention and just wanted to talk. I composed myself and told Marlon that if he ever comes to my house or business again uninvited, I will take him to court, get a restraining order and tell his boss that he's been using his sick days to stalk me, as well as having my lawyer convey that fact to his employer so that they actually take it seriously. I then reminded Marlon that if he loses his job, he won't be able to support his parents. I then calmed down, told Marlon that I still think he needs to cut off contact with his parents, reminding him that his mom and brother ruined his relationship with me, and that he won't have a life unless he cuts them off. However, I also told Marlon that I want him to be happy, but it won't be with me. Once inside my house and after Marlon left, I explained this whole situation to Virgil. We talked about it. He said he still wants to be with me, which I appreciate, and that, if necessary, I will get a restraining order, but I don't really want to go to court any more than I have to. I stayed with Marlon for as long as I did, stayed with him for the last 13 to 15 months, in which I was no longer happy being in that relationship, in what I guess was a baseless hope that things would get better, and the memory of how good the first 2 years of the relationship were. Before I met Marlon's family, before they interfered in our relationship, interfered in my life, things were good, but I know now that Marlon from 2021 is not the same Marlon today in 2025. If I had a magic wand, I would love nothing more but to go back to the late 1990s and get CPS to take Marlon away from his parents, so at least, Marlon could grow up in a healthier home, even if it is in foster care, but I know that's as fanciful as the idea of Marlon's parents ever actually loving or appreciating him. Marlon believes he's being noble and selfless by caring for his ungrateful family. I cannot reason with that. I don't know how to. Lastly, as for why I haven't yet pursued a restraining order against Marlon yet, it is because up until a couple of days ago, Marlon still had a job, and I knew that if I took Marlon himself to court and or pursued a restraining order against him too, it could get him fired, and the stress of all this could cause him to spiral even further. Despite everything he's done and that has happened, I still don't want to cause harm to him if I could avoid doing so, plus he's never assaulted me or threatened me yet. I just want him out of my life, but without making his any more difficult. Sorry if my story seems a little disjointed. I spent all night trying to write it, am tired, and my thoughts and memories are kinda all over the place right now. I'll ask Ashima to link my story to her update. Edit: I did change my mom's nationality due to her being Israeli and the current anti-Israel sentiment right now, but I was encouraged by Ashima to not hide that fact. Sorry for the late update, had a lot of stuff going on. As quite a few of you have strongly suggested, I, 30F, evicted Marlon, 31M, from my home, giving him the 30-day notice to leave, hence he no longer living with me. I recognize now that the Marlon I befriended from years ago, when we were in college, is not the same person I know now. Because of that, Tiffany, 30F, and I organized for Marlon to move in with non-toxic family members of his. I'll explain how we got here. Also, just as a side note, but Paige has seen my posts and is reading them, as well as the comments. She has also posted her own update as well, with the link to that posted above. So, on June 4th, I decided to have a sit-down with Marlon. I told him that given the chaos he's been causing for himself and me, I felt it was best that he moves out, hence I handed him the notice for him to leave. He asked where he was going to go, but I reminded him that he does pay the rent for his parents' apartment, so he could move into the apartment he is already paying for or spend extra money, renting somewhere else. Either way, he had 30 days to organize his own accommodation. He didn't really argue, as he did recognize he overstayed his welcome. I also informed him that I did not want his parents coming to my house ever again. Fast forward to 2 weeks later, still within the 30 days he had to leave, Marlon came home telling me that he got fired. He didn't tell me about this previously, but a few days before his firing, his parents came to his office to berate Marlon again. He didn't say what for, but also to demand that his manager give him a pay raise, as Marlon wasn't earning enough to support the three of them. They of course caused a commotion in the office, Marlon's parents arguing with his manager, and Marlon, rather than stand up to his parents, got scared and started basically begging his manager to give him a raise just to keep the peace with his family. Marlon's parents were escorted out of the office by security, and Marlon's boss had a pretty tense talk with him about this immediately after they were removed. As I understood, Marlon's issues with his family and his breakup with Paige, 30F, was causing him a lot of stress. Initially Marlon's boss was understanding and did encourage him to take some time off to take care of himself, but after a while, Marlon seemed distracted and the quality of his work was declining to the point it was starting to affect the productivity of the team. Additionally, before this incident, Marlon's parents have sent emails and left voice messages to Marlon's boss, which also annoyed him, Marlon's boss, but also attracted the attention of upper management. Bear in mind, Marlon had a pretty well-paying job, with most of that money going towards his family's debts, shopping, and expenses. Fast forward to the week before Marlon was supposed to move out. Marlon was still looking for a new place to stay, while also looking for a new job. Tiffany initially offered to let Marlon move in with her for a few days, but her husband Christian, 35M, shot down that idea immediately, as he understood the situation with Marlon and didn't want him in their house, and Marlon has become more stressed and irrational because of the situation his parents put him in. Anyway, we were celebrating Paige's 30th birthday at Tiffany's home. While Marlon knew about the event, he wasn't invited, for obvious reasons. During the get-together, while we were just hanging out in the living room, Marlon just walked into the house, uninvited. He didn't even ring the doorbell and entered the living room saying hi, awkwardly smiling, trying to act cool, pretending like he belonged there, pretending that what he was doing was somehow normal. Tiffany and I asked him what is he doing here. Marlon initially lied, saying that he was invited, but Tiffany noted that she didn't invite him. Marlon then said something along the lines of, "Well, you guys," referring to me and Tiffany, "are my friends, so," to which I cut him off, with me telling him, "Yeah, but you weren't invited, and this is for Paige, not you," as I also pointed out that it was incredibly inappropriate for him to be here. He then tried speaking to Paige, who was seated next to her boyfriend Virgil, 33M, asking her if they could talk in private. Paige just coldly looked at him and told Marlon no, and Paige telling him to leave. Marlon then just started talking, saying things like, "We can talk about this, and we can still make this work if you just agree to talk to me." Marlon also added that his mom said she'd be willing for Paige to date Marlon again if Paige apologizes to her. Marlon's mom, for getting Ryan, Marlon's older brother, sent to jail for trying to rob Paige's tattoo parlor last year, and if Paige withdraws her restraining order against his mom. Marlon then also tried to remind Paige that she is a criminal, as well as Paige was once arrested for disorderly conduct after she participated in a Black Lives Matter protest in NYC back in 2020, for which she paid a fine for, so Marlon believes that it wasn't fair for her to have his brother arrested for attempting to rob her parlor. Additionally, Marlon talked about how his mom is still stalking Paige on social media, saw her photos with her new boyfriend Virgil, to which Marlon talked about how his mom doesn't approve of the fact Paige is dating a black man. Virgil is half black, to which Paige interrupted him, angrily shouting back, "I don't give a FCK what your mom thinks." Paige continued saying that she doesn't want to cater to his mom's whims, reminded Marlon of all the anti-Semitic slurs his parents called her. As previously mentioned, Paige is Jewish. In the last few months of her relationship with Marlon she wasn't happy and that she wants nothing to do with his family. Additionally, Paige also went on to say that she's happy with Virgil as unlike Marlon, he actually does support her. Marlon then tried to grab Paige's hand as he tried begging again, but Virgil got up and shoved Marlon, causing Marlon to fall back and Virgil telling him to get the FCK back. Virgil then again reminded Marlon that Paige already broke up with him, she already told him he, Marlon, wasn't invited and she already told him to leave, as Paige held back Virgil. Christian and Andy, another guest, were about to grab Marlon and drag him out of the house. Paige then got up, told them to stop. She then said, "Fine Marlon, you want to talk, let's talk." For a few seconds, Marlon excitedly smiled with glee, only for Paige to elaborate that she wasn't going to talk about getting back together with him, that simply was never on the table, but instead, she wanted to talk about everything that was wrong with Marlon, specifically his toxic relationship with his parents. As soon as she said that, Marlon just nervously said, "I don't want to talk about that." Paige replied saying, "Well, I didn't want you here either, but here we are." For the next 2 hours, Paige's birthday party then turned into an impromptu intervention with Paige berating Marlon for his spinelessness, Paige saying things like, "Why couldn't you have stuck up for me when I did that for you? Why can't you stand up for yourself? Do you like getting hurt? And, have they, his parents, ever made you happy?" Paige went on to acknowledge that they did have good times when we're together, but that was before his parents showed up back in his life. Marlon in turn switched between trying to defend his parents and saying he didn't want to talk about his parents' toxic behavior, with Marlon saying things like, "I'm just trying to be a good son," Marlon talking about how old and sickly his mom is, and how he needs to take care of his parents because they're family. Marlon also kept repeatedly shouting things like, "I don't want to talk about this," and, "I did not come here to talk about this," referring to Paige forcing Marlon to confront his problems. Christian chimed in, telling Marlon, "It's not enough that you're setting yourself on fire to keep your ungrateful parents warm, but you're now trying to set 2 other women, me and Paige, on fire as well," followed by Christian telling Marlon to grow up, stop humiliating yourself, and man the FCK up. To which Marlon, while crying, screamed back at Christian, "No." Tiffany then told off Christian for being too cruel to Marlon, to which Christian reminded Tiffany that Marlon isn't one of her students. Tiffany works as a preschool teacher, so she should stop treating him like a child. Tiffany and Christian then got into a separate argument because of this, as Christian reminded Tiffany that the 2 of them have a kid on the way, hence she can't keep spending her money to help Marlon. Towards the end, Marlon was just this crying, blubbering, incoherent mess, and saying he just wanted things to go back to normal, while keeping his family happy. Paige then composed herself and asked Marlon about his Aunt Grace, who is the older sister of Marlon's mom, asking him if he still had contact with her. Marlon said yes, as he still had her on Facebook as well as having her email saved somewhere on his phone. Paige then told Marlon to unlock his phone and give it to her, which he did so she could look for Grace's email address. Paige explained to me and Tiffany that Grace was one of the few kind and non-toxic family members Marlon had. She told us of how Marlon previously talked about how when he was growing up, Grace was to protect him from his mom's abuse, and again was one of the few members of his family who was actually nice to him. Paige then asked Marlon if Grace still lives in Mississippi. "They live in Montana now," said Marlon. Paige then said she'll try to get in touch with Grace and recommended that we ask her if she'd be willing to take in Marlon. She went on to say that if Marlon doesn't leave, she'd have no choice but to get a restraining order against him as well. Paige and Virgil then thanked us for throwing her a party, and left. I turned to Marlon. I was about to ask him what was he thinking coming here, causing a scene, ruining the party, ask for what he hoped to gain, but I thought to myself it was probably pointless to ask, so I didn't. Over the next few couple of weeks Tiffany, Paige and I made contact with Marlon's Aunt Grace. Paige explained the situation to her, while Tiffany and I organized the logistics of moving Marlon's stuff to his aunt's place. Tiffany paid for the shipping of Marlon's stuff to his aunt's place. Marlon did tell us that he didn't really want to leave California as he wanted to stay close to his parents, to which I simply asked him, okay, if you don't move in with your aunt in Montana, who are you going to stay with and who's going to support you? Marlon sat there looking at me and Tiffany for an awkward 10 seconds and he finally said, I was actually kinda hoping you'd cancel my eviction and help pay for, to which I cut him off telling him that helping him move was the last thing I was going to help him with. I also reminded him that Paige was going to take legal action against him and get a restraining order if he didn't leave and he has no job so he won't be able to pay for anything. Tiffany asked if Marlon's parents couldn't also just move to Montana with him. Marlon explained that's likely not going to happen as his mom and Aunt Grace hate each other, as well as Marlon telling us of how his mom is low-key terrified of Grace, although he didn't necessarily know why. On Friday, the 4th of July, it was time for Marlon to move out of my home, and he assured us he was well enough to drive up to Montana himself. I told him Tiffany and I will organize for the rest of his stuff to be shipped over to his aunt's place. Marlon thanked me and Tiffany for supporting him and apologized for his behavior as well as the problems he caused us. We accepted his apology but I told Marlon I didn't want to do anything more to help him past this point. Tiffany also apologized to Marlon on behalf of her husband Christian as Tiffany felt Christian was being too harsh on Marlon. So now Marlon is gone and Paige helped me clean up and organize the guest bedroom in my home, where Marlon used to stay. With him the house does feel more relaxing and peaceful. Honestly, I feel less stressed now that he's gone. Lastly, given that Paige has been more involved in these events more than I have, I agreed that if anything else new happens or if there's any new updates, I'll let Paige post about it herself. Stories number 20. My ex accidentally got a woman pregnant, and I am kind of glad about it. My ex is an absolutely horny MF. When he is in the mood, any barrier that is in the way be absolutely damned. His mind is on one thing and one thing only. It's to the point where I fully believe there is some mental illness that exists that he has around intercourse. It physically pained him if I ever turned him down. He would accept my answer but he needed to leave immediately and would need to go on a long run at full sprint afterwards. We had a treadmill so I knew where he was. I had to lie to him that I wasn't on birth control, I was, just so he would also put a condom on. He still would forget more than half the time. We did have a pregnancy scare a few times as my period does tend to skip when I get overly stressed. I knew I wasn't but you gotta double check with these things. He absolutely panicked every single time. He would be agitated as anything for the week. He would cry, and just be absolutely terrified that I was pregnant. He did not want a child until much later on in life. We could not afford a child and one of his biggest fears is having to be poor again in the same way he grew up. This was a dick move on my part, but if I knew he was broke I would force him to buy the pregnancy test just to drive home the point. He would be counting his coins out and had to sell a game for the cash. Despite all of this he would never learn his lesson. He would never stop and think. I ended things with him for obvious reasons, but now a few years later he got this woman pregnant. I somewhat know her, she is a bit messy and they aren't dating. He really isn't happy with the situation or doing well at the minute either. I do feel bad for both of them as the baby was a surprise. I mostly feel bad for the baby though. It's still early days, and we aren't American so they do have a few options in front of them luckily, but I am kind of glad it finally happened to him. The consequences of his actions catching up after all these years. He needed to learn. Stories number 21. Am I the asshole for saying, good job, after my kid defended herself from a bully by punching him? I need to see if I am crazy here. My kid, F13, has a bully. He's one of those kids who's related to someone in the school district. We've has multiple issues with this kid harassing mine but my kid is bullied a lot sadly. We're actually switching her into a new school because the public schools have done nothing and this past semester it got physical. The bully pushed her and she stumbled back. Fortunately only scratches but I was livid. The bully got suspension but he's been suspended before. I tried talking to the parents and they make excuses of which the wildest is that they'll probably end up together someday, because of how they argue. I told them under no uncertain terms that their son is not to even look at my daughter and his only words to her need to be an apology. I got the, well he's suspended so what else do you want? Argument. This summer she was in STEM camp, she begged to be signed up, but so was the bully and this time, during their outdoor break, the teacher was physically on his phone when the bully, in full view of multiple students, pushed my daughter and she turned and punched him in the stomach. The bully is now up for possible suspension from the camp, not the district, but I lodged another formal complaint this time threatening a lawsuit. I asked my daughter if she defended herself, and she said she was afraid he was going to hurt her because he threatened to knock her out. I said okay. Good job defending yourself. Glad you're okay. Let's just catch a movie and decompress. I told my siblings on Father's Day and was immediately told by my eldest brother and his wife that I should never have encouraged her to fight anyone. I argued that I didn't. I am glad she defended herself when she was scared and the person I trusted her care to was not even paying attention. They argue that now she will see punching people as okay the next time she gets her feelings hurt, that I am a bad parent for opening that door. Am I? I mean, if she's in trouble and in physical danger, I don't want her to ever think she will get in trouble for defending herself, but now I'm second-guessing everything. She's seemingly okay now, and I took the week off so we can celebrate Juneteenth together and just decompress from it, but I want her to grow up and be safe. MITAH for saying good job. Holy shit, that's a lot of comments. Editing some typos and also clarifying some questions and assumptions as I can't answer that many comments tonight. Multiple students confirm her story, so no, I don't think she's lying and started a fight for no reason. She's as level-headed as they come, and I won't say she's never lied to me, but I will say I tend to know when she does. Cameras are being checked because I formally requested today. I am not a dad but a mom. Not everyone agreed with my brother, but enough of them did that made me question, and he and his wife were very insistent. Comment. From what I understand of the situation, she ran for the teacher right after she threw the punch. Update. So about a week ago I posted about a bullying sitting with my kid who is F13, and I mentioned this bully is a relative of someone who works high up in our district. I went into a meeting with the district after my formal request for the camera footage of the event, and I continued to follow up via email and call but kept getting stonewalled. I was frustrated, so I spoke with my BFF who works in education, and she suggested a police report could put a Bunsen burner under their asses. She was right. Once I had a copy of my report for the assault and armed with all my past complaints and emails with the resource officer of the kid's school, I sent it to my point of contact with the district. It's a freaking miracle, I got a call the same day. A meeting was arranged and I meet with them next week. Juneteenth was wonderful, and my kid had a blast. She hasn't been punished, and honestly, I was really enjoying spending time with her, so we took advantage of the time, saw a movie, went shopping, etc. I work a lot and am a single mom, so free time outside the general weekends has been rare as of late, especially now that she's doing camps, making friends, and wanting to do sleepovers and such. I posted some photos on my private account and my brother sent me a text. I won't go into everything, because his message was long, but basically he said I am spoiling her when she should be punished for fighting in school and I will be raising a criminal. I told him that he can mind his business and his own children, and he said, she's not even really yours, and I lost it. My message back was that he's not been supportive since my husband died, and come to think of it, he wasn't supportive when we married. So I don't take his opinion on my daughter with any high regard. And if he and his wife want to instill in children that they should let someone hurt them or others and bullies should have their way, then maybe it's time we spent less time around them. We were going to go to the birthday party for my Isael before all of this happened, a family event. I think my daughter and I will skip that for now. And before it's asked, she is not biologically my daughter but legally, and in the way of the fact that I love her more than anything. I formally adopted her when she was 2 after I married her father. He passed away when she was 6 and I've had sole custody since. Her biological mother is not in the picture. Since my husband passed, it's just been me and her in the day-to-day. I hope to update after the school meeting. Update 2. We had the meeting over Zoom. I came in expecting to have to come in guns blazing like a maniac. I was ready to go fully feral. But I guess all the legal work I've been doing around this was sufficient fire under their rears. I was indirectly asked to not further involve authorities. The footage finally found proved my daughter's story. With this evidence and all the stuff I've managed to bring to the table, plus having a lawyer's contact info sent to them, they finally expelled the kid. I was assured he will not be at school next semester. It was a win, but not enough for me to stop the legal actions. Maybe that makes me the AH, but fuck it. I don't care. Charges are being pressed for assault armed with the video. Here it's not life-ruining unless he keeps the pattern of abuse. But I am also looking to get my kid in a STEM-oriented school since that's her passion right now. I looked at packages and tuitions etc. and it will tight but doable, and I truly believe she's gifted/smart/hardworking enough that giving her a chance to explore this is worth any inconvenience. That should be it, right? Oh, you sweet summer child. My daughter doesn't even know about the meeting. She's been happily in camp elsewhere during the day. But a few days ago she asked me, Mama, do you think I'm a bad person? And I told her that I didn't. She asked me why does her uncle think so? I asked what she meant. My beloved brother's stepson has been texting my daughter as they are actually close. Brother has been shit-talking my kid. He calls her my stray kitten and not real family. That fucking did it. I am having a barbecue at my place for July 4th and I formally uninvited him and his wife. I sent him a text stating that the way he treats me and my kid is simply unacceptable. I am a mom and my duty is to my kid. I cannot have someone who looks down on her and treats her badly come into her home where she is to be safe. He is not a safe person for my child and thus not welcome in my home. My brother lost his mind on me so badly I had to mute his number a while to get some peace. He started with put-downs and insults but then he went for my kid. He called her some terrible things and then said that I am brain dead for keeping my stray after all the trouble she's made. I just asked, wow, what is your problem with her, really? You're doing the fucking most to hate her. Like, how does a grown man get off hating a literal child? He told me to fuck off, so I sent screenshots to mom. Yeah, I tattled. I'm grown. Don't give a shit anymore. Fuck this guy. He's my brother. I love him. But I do not like him, and if he's going to show his whole ass, may as well fetch mom so she can pull his stick out of it. That was an hour ago. My kid and I headed out for pizza. Have fun, bro. He better be glad it's our mom and not me about to hand him his own hind. Tonight I will try to talk to my daughter about the school, and sadly that uncle and auntie are great a liquid shits. I won't use that phrase but I'm pissed, and so won't be around, and we may be taking some time just her and me. We are a team, me and her against the world. I will always have her back. Oh, and she and I will together be taking Krav Maga. Thanks for the suggestions. With the bully dealt with, I think this is my final update, so I wanted to say thanks to everyone who kept this mama sane and were supportive. It's crazy how simple, kind and affirming words can bolster a person. For those who've shared stories of being bullied, I'm sorry you went through that, and as for your bullies, may a popcorn kernel be lodged in each tooth and unreachable every single day. Love always, Chavi and V. Comments. He's already a hypocrite, he's biologically my cousin. He's adopted himself. That's why I told mom. I don't have the brain space or energy to unravel his non-logic. I mean, she's mixed, Afro, Caribbean and Romanian. Anyone on the outside looking in just assume my late husband was white, he was Romanian, and that she is my bio kid as I am black. Update 3. I am without words. A couple days ago I told my eldest brother, Mark, and by proxy also his wife, Julie, to stick it where the sun don't shine after Mark went on a text storm about my adopted daughter. For background, my daughter, Vivi, may not be biologically mine, but she is my daughter. I've known her since her first year of life. I've been her mom since. I married her father when she was too small to even really remember and legally adopted her. She's only always ever called me mama. When my husband passed away, it became me and her against the world. The dynamic duo. Recently Vivi didn't start a fight but finished it with a bully she'd endure for much longer than she should have had to. The whole saga is on my account if you want all those details, but the short is she ended up defending herself from him physically. He's now expelled. My daughter was not punished at home, in fact I told her good job on defending herself. That's where my butt-crack-brained brother got on his bullshit. He never liked my late husband, unless our daughter, and always had something rude to say about them. But this sent him into a huge tirade on how Vivi will grow up to be a criminal, that I'm encouraging violence, and the next time she gets her feelings hurt she will think it's okay to start a fight. Julie said she is concerned because single-parent households produce angry and bottled-up children who are FSR more likely to end up in jail. I told them I never asked for their opinions and the rest of my siblings agreed with me. But my brother wasn't done. He texted me vile things about my daughter, and his stepson sent video and screenshots of my brother calling her a stray kitten, his apparent favorite insult, and saying that she is not my child and so on. I uninvited him to my 4th of July barbecue, told him he is not to talk to or even look at my child until he fixes his attitude, and he just doubled down. Let me be clear. He is the eldest, but he is adopted too. He is biologically my cousin. 2 of his 4 kids are stepchildren. Julie is a widow. His hypocrisy is breathtaking. So I had my daughter send over all the evidence she had and delete it off her phone, and I took all my screenshots and the like and sent it to my mom. I snitched so hard. I don't have time for this bullshit. Don't know what she said to him, but she called me back that night a few hours later and told me to let her know if he decides to show his whole ass again. She talked to Vivi on speaker while I finished making us some treats before bed and told her that she loves her very much, that Uncle Mark is being a jerk, and if he or Aunt Julie try to bother Vivi or I again to tell her. It rained like crazy on the 4th, so my barbecue only had a handful of folks who lived near me from the family and some friends. Vivi was happy, kicking her other uncles' asses at Mario Kart, and all the adults are drinking and dancing or watching the rain on my porch when who walks in? Mark, Julie, their 4 kids. Julie strolls right up to me with a whole ass chicken and asks where she can put it down. I was like, sorry, what? I asked her what she was doing here and why they were there. Apparently my dear old bro didn't tell her about our most recent spat and the invitation being revoked. She looked truly shocked. I'm livid by this point, but the kids are playing video games and Vivi looks happy. She's pointedly ignoring my brother who said hello to her, and when he doesn't get an answer he throws his hands up and says, "So much for manners." My other brother, Zeke, just goes UO to him and starts to talk to him quietly. I could hear Mark arguing, but Zeke just kept his hand on his shoulder. I looked at Julie, who looked like she was in panic/fix-it mode. I told her, "Listen, if they want to leave the kids here for a couple hours that's fine, but my brother is not welcome in my home, so she will have to be THR1 to pick them up." She thanked me, and went to my brother, who now had both our other brothers talking to him. They all walk him out. I heard him say, "Kids, let's go," and his wife said, "Kids, I'll be back by 3. Be good." And pulled him out. I sent him a text reminding him not to speak to my child, and he is not welcome in my home until he apologizes for all the verbal abuse towards Vivi and fixes his attitude about her. My stepdad and mom arrived not long after, and when he was told what happened, Dad started to take his pipe to the porch and sat right next to the front door. Mom arranged it with Julie that she will take the kids home when she leaves, and we managed to have a good time. Today is Sunday. My mom had asked we all go this week, so we did. She did warn me Mark might be there. I warned Vivi. She said it was fine. I told Mom it's fine, but Mark needs to give Vivi a wide berth. And I told Mark via text that he is to stay away from my child. He replied, "I don't need reminders." Okay then. Service went fine. I'm not much of a church person, but Vivi had a solo and sang beautifully, so this mama is happy. There was food happening in the event hall, and Vivi asks if she can stay a while and chat with her friends. Sure, I say, have fun. All was well for about 45 minutes. I was sitting with stepdad and one of my brothers when Mark comes over to say his byes. Everyone gets a hug but me. Fine by me. He says, "Kitty did a good job up there." And I said, "Who?" And I could see that it was in that moment he knew he fucked up. I don't know if he meant to say Kitty or not, and I don't rightly care. I said, "Who?" Again, and he muttered, "Vivica," and I nodded and told him that is her name. Same name she's had the whole time. Julie is trying to get him to leave, and he is almost leaving when Vivi and her friends come up. She told me later she saw her uncle come up to us and not hug me, and that made her mad. So she came up to be near for support with her friends. I did tell her that I'm grown and don't need her to come to my defense, that it's my job to protect her, not the other way around, and her response? Just a nod. Kids. Mark complimented Vivi and she gave a very plain, "Thanks," then asked if I was ready to go. I said sure if she is. Mark sent me a short text telling me I embarrassed him and our whole family with my show I put on. He's upset now because we don't need to make our issues everyone's business at church, and that I don't even go to church, so why invade his safe spaces? He called me immature and that I need to stay away from his kids so I don't teach them such poor manners. I haven't even responded. Vivi is getting dressed and we are going to my mom's for lunch. Stepdad said Mark outright refused to come when he confirmed I would be there. Mark has told our parents if I am somewhere, he won't be there. My reply. Does he promise? I told my dad, if he wants to be this way we can just go full NC. I don't have patience for this nonsense, and that also meant I am not helping out next time he needs anything. I'm out. Dad got quiet and said he gets it, but to remember that Mark's kids did nothing. He's okay if I want to stick it to Mark, but asks I don't, friendly fire, on THR children. I told him we'll talk when we get there. He's going to want to bring up our family vacation, of which I took care of the hotel and passes for because my job is within that industry. I'm usually the go-to for these things. We are supposed to go for the first week of August. We try to do one vacation as a big extended family per year. We'll see how this fucking goes.